Chapter 563. After getting the semi-finished Mechanical Revolution design blueprint, Eric put all his energy into it and started researching and perfecting the specific plan of mechanizing the body. But it was precisely this point that caused him to argue with Tesla. In fact, at the same time that Eric had found a plan to mechanize the body, Tesla had also found a plan to help the players in Naraka strengthen their bodies. That was genetic modification, cyborg form. Thus, the two of them had an argument. Neither of them would give way to the other, and they each expressed their own opinions. The quarrel was also caused by this. Looking at the two flushed faces, AI, Ku, who was standing at the side, listened quietly. At the same time, he reported the current situation of Naraka to Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes. At this moment, Eric suddenly turned his head and looked at Eric. Ike, who do you think is better between the two of us? Knowing that he would not be able to convince the stubborn donkey, Tesla, no matter what, Eric passed the judgment to the super artificial intelligence Ike. Hearing that, Tesla also looked at Ike. Right now, his thoughts were exactly the same as Eric's. He felt that Eric, this stubborn donkey, could not be persuaded at all. However, the two of them trusted Yak, who had the super database, and they were looking forward to him giving them a satisfactory answer. When Ike heard that, he nodded helplessly and voiced his opinion. Actually, both of your plans are very feasible, but according to my analysis and calculations, the two of you are more suitable for the mechanical transformation of your bodies at this stage. This wasn't to say that the biohuman mode wasn't feasible. It was just that the biohuman mode only strengthened the physical body. It couldn't improve the player's advantage in combat techniques. However, mechanization is different. You're already familiar with the technological weapons installed, so it will be easier for you to operate them. Therefore, in terms of increasing combat power, mechanization is the most effective and closest to you. Aha, Tesla, did you hear that? Just say that my plan is the most suitable for us. Eric seemed very happy when he heard that. He looked at Tesla proudly and said. Tesla, on the other hand, had a constipated look on his face, but he still chose to acquiesce to Acker's inference. Although the two of them were very intelligent, in terms of data analysis, there was still a huge gap between them and Yak. They were very clear about this. All right, then let's study the mechanization of the body first. Tesla sighed. Ike nodded. He pointed at the blueprint on the table and said, This blueprint isn't perfect, so we need to try it from the beginning. We'll replace the body parts bit by bit until only the head is left. If it's possible, maybe we can even give up on the brain and input it into the mechanical body after digitizing it. This way, even if the mecha explodes in battle, we'll have a second life, and our strength won't necessarily be weaker than the mecha. Tesla nodded. Then where do you plan to start? Also, we're the test subjects. When Eric heard this, he grinned. Since I'm the one who came up with the concept, then the test subject is me. If it was in reality, Tesla would definitely reject Eric's crazy idea. However, he did not have to worry too much in the game. He immediately nodded in agreement. Next, the two of them began to study the semi-finished blueprint of the Mechanical Revolution. From time to time, they would ask Eric about certain aspects of knowledge and record their own opinions. The artificial intelligence, Ike, played a great supporting role in this regard. After all, Eric and Tesla's brain capacity was limited. Human body modification involved a lot of knowledge. It was impossible for them to dabble in all kinds of knowledge. At this time, I could flip through the stored information in the database and provide basic knowledge. Then the two mad scientists would discuss and research in depth. The process of research and development was long, but for Eric and Tesla, who had a fanatical passion in this area, it would not be boring at all. Most importantly, the body in reality was supported by the nutrient solution, so they could have 24 hours of research during the campaign. Their efficiency was greatly improved. Of course, the improvement was only in efficiency. During the process of research and development, there would always be accidents. The reason why the base built at this time was a temporary base was that the location of the base could be changed at any time. They had built bases in the east, south, west, and north of the Blue Valley ruins, but without exception, they would be destroyed by the raging beast tide in less than a week. In the land of hell, the players had long been accustomed to the beast tide. This time was no exception. On the fourth day of the research on the mechanical transformation of the human body, a fierce beast tide came. Those unintelligent hell beasts began to wreak havoc. The entire blacklight base was like duckweed in a storm, destroyed in the blink of an eye. However, the players of the Blacklight organization had already come up with a way to deal with the hell beast tide. To be specific, it was not a response, but an evacuation. Since they could not fight it head-on, they would investigate the movements of the hell beast tide in advance and retreat one step ahead. Because of this, the players of hell did not have a home, so they all called themselves Wanderers of Hell. Compared to the hegemony mode of other regions, the main theme of the Naraka server was survival before one's strength rose. Although it was very cruel, it was also full of fun. Hiding in the ruins, smoking, looking at the gloomy sky and the raging beast tide outside, the nervousness and excitement in their hearts were a different kind of feeling that could not be experienced in other major territories. A man's passion belonged to the mech, and the cruel environment of survival was the driving force that stimulated his passion. From the initial complaints to the current integration, the players of Hell had grown step by step and had completely adapted to this kind of life. During this period, in order to better survive, their passion for developing new weapons and new technology had never faded. It could be said that Lu Wu had chosen the right path again. This was because the players of Hell did not let him down. They had developed a growth mode that was completely different from other servers, and they had the same unlimited potential. Because they did not know that the world in the game actually existed, the players were very daring to try. This was like Ari and Tesla. An idea led to the birth of a faction, especially Tesla. His mech battle fortress growth plan was still a popular growth plan in Hell until now. Now, Ari had also come up with a new idea of his own, mechanization of a body. A brand new school of thought emerged from nothing as the two of them researched, slowly taking shape. The process of research was very long. 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month. Time flew by. During this period, the two of them gave up on leveling up, gave up on researching the shop's blueprint, and devoted themselves to the design of the mechanization of the body plan. Every time the two of them designed a plan, they would let the super AI Ike conduct data, simulation tests, and analysis. This undoubtedly saved Ari and Tesla a lot of practical steps, and it also sped up the pace of their research. Without Ike's help, Ari and Tesla felt that they might not be able to complete the mechanization of the body even after spending a few years. Soon, 2 months had passed. Relying on the semi-finished design blueprint as a foundation, the perfect design blueprint of the body's mechanization was finally released. For this blueprint, Ari and Tesla did not go offline for a full 2 months. During this period of time, they worked crazily and finally perfected the design. At the same time, this mechanization of the body blueprint had gone through more than 100 intelligent simulations by Ike. It could be said that on the technical level, it had already reached the standard of implementation of the transformation. The only thing that was lacking was the practical part. However, practical was also the easiest step to go wrong. After all, simulations were only theories. Whether it would succeed or not depended on the practical aspect. However, since the blueprint was already perfected, it meant that this step could be carried out. The first step was to collect the materials. As the boss behind the scenes of the Jetta technology, Ari was not short of money. He mobilized a large amount of liquid funds and invested it into the battle. He bought a large number of soul coins at the Soul Coin Exchange at a high price. Then, he used the soul coins to buy many precious spiritual materials from the shop. He even bought some special spiritual materials from the auction house of other servers to consume during the transformation. For example, the solid iron, or that could increase the hardness of the metal, or the molten fire, or that could increase the toughness of the metal, and so on. After getting these materials, Ari put all of them into the refining interface of the function panel and processed them into parts. There were a total of 3,795 parts. From small screws to large body parts such as arms and legs, it could be said that everything that one could think of was there. After all the preparations were complete, The human transformation plan was officially launched. For this, Ari and Tesla built a temporary laboratory. They bought a control panel from the shop and a few mechanical arms to be used for the transformation. At this time, Ari was tied to the experiment table. Tesla was the one who was controlling the experiment table and the mechanical arms. Ari, block your pain perception first. I'm going to start. Tesla could not help but remind him before he started. Ari heard this and nodded. Without hesitation, he lowered the pain perception to 3%. After all, this was a transformation of the body. The pain that he had to experience was definitely unbearable. Although he was very passionate about scientific research, since he could lower the pain perception, why should he suffer? However, he did not completely lower the pain perception to 0%. This was because he needed to feed back the feelings of the experiment to Tesla. This was very important experimental data. It could be said that at this moment, Ari was carrying out the experiment with the attitude of dedicating himself to science. After making sure that Ari was ready, the metal straps that bound Ari tightened and fixed him on the experiment table to prevent him from struggling and causing errors in the experiment. Everything was ready. The tips of 5 of the mechanical arms revealed the tips of needles. They slowly pierced into Ari's skin and began to inject a type of liquid metal. The first step was the transformation of the bones into metal. This was because in order for Ari's body to completely get rid of the mortal body, all the organs in his body had to be replaced from the inside out. The skeleton was the foundation to support the body. After discussing with Tesla, Ari decided to transform it instead of completely replacing it. Although it was only 3% pain, Ari still widened his eyes and his muscles began to twitch involuntarily. It's so F*** painful. Therefore, he lowered the pain perception to 0. 5% without hesitation. Although it was still very painful, it had reached Ari's tolerance point this time. It was not as unbearable as before. However, during the injection of the liquid metal, his HP plummeted. He quickly opened a voice channel and told Tesla to slow down the injection of the liquid metal. Otherwise, it would take 3 hours. Upon hearing this, Tesla immediately slowed down the injection of the liquid metal. At the same time, he manipulated the other 3 potions that were infused with the blood recovery liquid to pierce into Ari's body to help him recover his HP. 2 types of liquid were injected at the same time. At this moment, Ari rolled his eyes in pain. However, in order to build a mechanical body, he gritted his teeth and endured it. However, during the transformation, Tesla could not help but frown. This was because the scanner detected that as the blood recovery liquid was injected into Ari's body, the liquid metal in his body was gradually disappearing. It was as if it was being devoured by an unknown substance. Regarding this, Tesla decisively reported it to Ari through the voice channel. Ari was stunned when he heard this. He could not understand why. At this moment, a game notification appeared. Game notification. Are you sure you want to create a new unnamed character class? If you choose yes, the right to transform your body will be unlocked. Please choose this option carefully. Once you choose, you will not be able to restore your original body. You will bear the consequences yourself. The appearance of the game notification stunned Ari. In fact, what he did not know was that Lu Wu was also paying attention to him at this moment. If Lu Wu did not unlock the ability to transform his body, it would be unrealistic for Ari to complete the transformation himself. This was because the rights to the player's bodies belonged to the artifact. If it was damaged, it would be recycled and repaired. If Lu Wu did not agree, the experiment would not be able to proceed. After a brief moment of shock, Ari suddenly understood the reason and decisively chose yes. Chapter 564. After the game notification appeared, Eric finally understood why the liquid metal would disappear after the healing potion was injected into his body. Obviously, the existence of the liquid metal was regarded as an injury by the battle god. The healing effect brought about by the healing potion erased this type of injury. After figuring this out, Eric chose to confirm without hesitation when faced with the option to create a new profession and provide the right to modify his body. Instantly, the server announcement in Naraka rang. Server announcement. Congratulations to player Eric for creating a new profession, intelligent machine. Obtained a hidden reward, 500 soul coins. At this moment, all the online players in Naraka were shocked. This was the first time that a profession had been created in Naraka. Although Naraka had always had new weapons and new forms of mecha, these creations had never been recognized by the battle god. It could only be considered an innovation, but not a profession creation. However, this time, Eric did it. Just as the Naraka players were in an uproar and discussing endlessly, Eric was experiencing the pain before the transformation. After confirming the creation of a profession and naming it, the liquid metal injected into his body would still cause damage to his body, but it would no longer be healed by the healing liquid. At the same time, when the liquid metal was injected, the remaining mechanical arms would smash Eric's body from time to time, breaking the bones in his body. Then, it would mix with the liquid metal. This was because Eric's design plan was to metallize the joints together, not just part of the bones. This was also the reason why he bought the tough metal. This process was undoubtedly painful. However, in order to complete this transformation, Eric gritted his teeth and endured it. From time to time, he would feed back the feelings of his body to Tesla through the voice channel so that he could record it and keep it as modification data. When the liquid metal filled Eric's bones, the second step of the transformation began. Bone reconstruction. Tesla, who was operating the control panel, looked nervous at this moment. He observed the condition of Eric's body through the X-ray panel, then controlled the mechanical arms to start the second reconstruction of Eric's bones. This step had to be completed quickly because if the liquid metal cooled and solidified, it would be very difficult to continue. Fortunately, Tesla was already very familiar with the control panel. Under his control, the metal arms slid back and forth, inserting the small parts in Eric's bones. The moment before the metal cooled, it was precisely fused with the bones. At the side, Eric was also providing data assistance from time to time. For example, the timing of the solidification of the liquid metal. Under Tesla's operation, Eric's skeleton gradually took shape. Its surface had a silvery white metallic luster, and its joints were connected by small metal gears and other parts. It could be said that Eric's bones had already completed the metallization process. However, the experiment was not over. For Eric and Tesla, this was just the beginning. The entire experiment process was dull and tedious. Fortunately, Tesla was full of passion in this aspect. Even though his eyes were bloodshot, he still focused all his attention on Eric. Time passed, and the modifications were still ongoing. Tesla was very careful with every component replacement. For example, when replacing an organ, Eric's HP would drop by a large amount. This was also the most dangerous time. If he did not handle it well, Tesla might be killed instantly. Tesla was under mental pressure, but Eric was under double pressure. Apart from the pain, the mental pressure was equally great. If anything went wrong, his account would be crippled, and he wouldn't be able to delete his account and start over. This was the price of innovation. Stripping the organs, replacing them with mechanical parts, and then injecting the power core source. The entire process was full of danger, but Eric gritted his teeth and endured it. At that moment, Eric's body was in a semi-dissected state. Nearly half of the organs in his body had become mechanical. At that moment, he looked very ferocious. However, Eric did not have any psychological burden. Instead, he was very excited. This was because he felt that his body was filled with great power. This power was provided by the operation of the energy core in his body. He looked forward to the moment when the modifications were completely completed. He wanted to know how great the changes would be. The sky gradually darkened. Unknowingly, it was already nighttime. There were a total of more than 3,000 components. It was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. The modifications had to continue. Looking at Eric, who was still persevering and occasionally providing his feelings, Tesla sincerely admired him. Although the modification of the body could block out the feeling of pain, the psychological pressure was also extremely great. An ordinary person would have long been unable to endure it. However, not only did Eric endure it, but he also activated the feeling of pain just to obtain important data and information. This spirit of dedication to scientific research made Tesla feel deep respect. Since Eric could endure it, Tesla felt that his own was nothing at all. He continued to persevere. Thus, that night, Tesla put all his energy into the modification of Eric. From time to time, he would communicate with Eric through the voice channel. Ike, who was beside him, would also point out the mistakes in the operation when necessary and save the mistakes in time. If one wanted to open up a new path, the pioneer who walked to the front would always have the hardest time. Meanwhile, the latecomers would have the experience of the predecessors. The path would be extremely smooth, and Eric would be the pioneer. The night passed quickly while the modifications were being carried out. When the morning light appeared, the modifications still did not stop. However, at that moment, Eric looked like a silver-white robot. At that moment, Tesla was still controlling the mechanical arm to add the rest of the small precision parts and nerve components in Eric's body. This was to ensure that Eric's body could operate normally when the modifications were completed. Although there was the assistance of the super artificial intelligence psych, the complexity of the modification process still exceeded Eric's and Tesla's expectations. During the final loading of the precision parts, mistakes kept appearing. Even Tesla did not notice these mistakes. Fortunately, Ike, who was beside him, was constantly simulating the operation of the mechanical parts in Eric's body. Once there was a mistake, he could remind Tesla to correct it in advance. However, this still gave Tesla a huge headache. This was like a programmer fixing a bug. If one part made a mistake, the changes would also affect other parts. This was because the mechanical body was a whole body. The operation was a complete big cycle plus dozens of small cycles. However, Eric and Tesla did not give up. Since there was a mistake, they would change it. If it did not work, they would dismantle a step and make a big change. The continuous pain that Eric endured during this period made Tesla feel pain just by looking at it. Fortunately, it was already coming to an end. On this day, all the players of the Blacklight organization became guardians. They were all stationed outside the laboratory to protect the transformation of the guild leader, Eric. When night fell again, Eric's body transformation finally took shape. Other than the brain that had not been completely replaced, Eric had become a robot at this time. Seeing this scene, Tesla smiled with relief. Eric, get up and take a few steps. Feel the condition of your body. I'll record it down. As he spoke, Tesla pressed a button on the console. The metal belt that bound Eric suddenly broke and retracted into the console. Seeing this, Eric sat up and looked at his hands. The silver-white hands had a cold metallic texture. At this moment, Eric suddenly felt a little excited. At this time, he still felt the sense of touch and pain. This was because the neuron parts had been connected to the entire body. This was also the last step of the transformation, a step that Tesla felt extremely painful. Eric wanted to transform a robot, not a pure machine. Therefore, these nerve parts were extremely important. At this moment, he opened the data panel. Intelligent mechanic, Eric, profession introduction, a 97% mechanized, silicon-based human body. Abandoning the cumbersome body, the use of power will be digitized and controllable. P.S. For example, a punch. When a normal person punches, they can only roughly judge how much strength they use. However, an intelligent mechanical life can determine the specific percentage of strength they use when they punch. Moreover, it's controllable. Profession skills, intelligent mechanical evolution, technology installation, data battle, intelligent mechanical evolution, passive, skill introduction. The intelligent mechanical life will not be able to replenish the body's consumption through ordinary food. Instead, it will use materials such as spirit ores and spirit materials to absorb energy from them and evolve itself. Skill note: after the body is mechanized, it will not be able to level up by killing monsters. At the same time, the soul coins obtained from killing monsters will increase by 25%. Skill note 2: devouring spirit ores will obtain the experience needed to level up. Technology installation, passive, skill introduction. The intelligent mechanical body will be able to carry technological weapons, internal and external. A custom-made weapon that matches the body will be required. Skill note: when carrying weapons and technological products, please pay attention to the load and energy consumption of the intelligent mechanical body. Data battle, passive, skill introduction. During a battle, the battle assistance system in the body will be activated automatically. It will analyze the terrain, battle damage, the opponent's situation, and other aspects to provide battle assistance based on data. Seeing his own panel, Eric could not help but clench his fists. He knew that he had succeeded. How is it, Eric? Quick, share your new profession panel. Tesla saw the situation and asked nervously. It's great. The tactile feedback is still there. Moreover, the body has become stronger. It's perfect. Eric replied immediately and shared his profession panel with Tesla. Looking at Eric's profession panel, Tesla smiled in relief. Although the process of scientific research was tough, the joy and satisfaction that came from reaping the fruits of success was irreplaceable. Eric, do you want me to make a skin for you? Looking at Eric, Tesla suddenly asked with a smile. Sure. After all, it's too eye-catching now. What style do you want? Rough? Steady? Domineering? Handsome? Of course, if you like, I can also make a female skin for you. Anyway, it's just a layer of skin. You can have whatever you want, Tesla teased. Prototype, Eric said in annoyance. As he spoke, Eric took out a spirit from his space, put it by his mouth, and ate it like a fruit. Instantly, a notification of his experience value increase appeared in his mind. At this moment, Eric suddenly felt that he might become a pay-to-win boss in the future. After all, spirit ores were rare resources. They were very expensive. As his level increased, the experience required for each level up would also increase. If this continued, you would have to spend a lot of money to level up. Thinking of this, Eric felt a headache. He suddenly felt that the money he had now was not enough. Chapter 565. Lu Wu watched the entire process of Eric transforming himself into a mechanical intelligence and felt extremely emotional. This meant that the biggest shortcoming of the Naraka server's growth system, which was the weakness of the players being defenseless after the mech was destroyed, had been successfully made up for. It was not that Lil Bailey did not think of this at the beginning, but to allow the Naraka players to focus on their development path, she deliberately did not add it. Just like the second stage of class advancement in the local server, it would only be opened when the overall strength of the Naraka server reached a certain level. However, he did not expect Eric to discover it in advance and successfully develop a countermeasure. At this moment, Lu Wu thought of that sentence again. The potential of the players was unlimited. Without any burden, a genius like Eric could display his talents to the fullest, proving this point to Lu Wu once again. At this time, Lu Wu already had a premonition that the rise of the Naraka server was coming. Therefore, he decisively opened up some of the permissions for the Naraka server's body modification. He wanted to see how far the Naraka players could go. Just as Lu Wu thought, on the same day, Eric uploaded his modified character panel and a modified video to the Naraka server forum. It was not out of kindness, but Eric clearly understood one thing, which was that the players of a server were a whole. The overall strength of the Naraka server was strong, which was beneficial to all the Naraka players, including himself. Even if the cross-server war had not started yet, the overall strength of the Naraka players had increased, which meant that the area they could occupy was larger. The size of the territory was linked to the amount of resources. Eric was a smart person, so he deeply understood this point. The Naraka server was bound together for good or ill. Once his human modification video was posted on the forum, not only did it cause a strong response from the Naraka players, but it also shocked the players of the other 4 servers. The most direct impact was that many casual players wanted to join the Blacklight Guild that Eric had created. Tesla's Mech Battle Fortress had already shocked the Naraka players at that time, and this time, Eric's performance was the same. This undoubtedly made the players realize the potential of the Blacklight organization and its strong foundation in the field of technology. Subsequently, the United States military also took the initiative to find Eric, hoping to research the subsequent advancement plan of human mechanization with him. However, this time, Eric decisively refused. As the first person to try the crab, the large number of players joining had given him a strong capital, so he no longer needed the help of the United States military. although the U.S. military was also a part of the overall strength of the Naraka server. However, they were on the opposite side after all, so this time, Eric's stance was very firm. This was because the U.S. military would definitely take the initiative to suppress him. After all, this was not the first time the U.S. military had such thoughts. For them, the Blacklight Guild would always be a strong opponent in the distribution of benefits. However, with the recent addition of independent players, the Blacklight organization began to expand rapidly. Eric believed that the day when they could compete with the United States military was not far away. After this, Eric's mechanical army plan was officially put on the agenda. With the experience of the human experiment, the subsequent modifications to the players' bodies only required them to turn off the pain barrier and take a nap. Compared to Eric's pain, they were much happier. Of course, Eric would not provide the guild's players with materials. After all, the mechanization of the human body would cost a lot of money. Eric felt that it was hard to feed himself, let alone the other players. This also forced many players of the Blacklight organization to choose to modify their bodies locally first, which was to perfect a few small cycles first to improve their combat effectiveness. Once he had the money, he would slowly improve it. At this stage, the evolution method of wisdom machinery had great potential. It could rely on devouring spiritual ores to strengthen the body, and it could also carry technological weapons. It could be said that there were many ways to evolve. However, the biggest problem was also obvious, which was the huge cost. Materials like spiritual ores had always been rare and expensive in Naraka. The daily consumption of wisdom machinery was spiritual ores, which ordinary players could not afford at all. It could be said that at this stage, this type of modification was completely exclusive to players with paywalls. Of course, it was not that ordinary players did not have a way to modify wisdom machinery. The method was very simple. They would work hard and carry bricks crazily until they were bald. As Naraka began to develop a new genre, the development of other servers also followed suit. During this period, apart from learning from Lil Bailey, Lu Wu's daily task was to devote the rest of his time to the construction and development planning of the game. Such days made Lu Wu feel very fulfilled. Seeing the players getting stronger and stronger, this feeling of nurturing made him look forward to it and feel gratified. Just like that, half a year passed. During this half a year, Lu Wu witnessed the gradual rise of the players. The first was the Asian server. During this period, the players of the Asian server, who were known as the Caretaker server, finally began to fight with the local forces of the Devil Ridge. This time, the players of the Asian server finally witnessed the strength of the local forces of the Devil Ridge. During the confrontation, the players of the Asian server appeared to be quite weak. It could be said that they were constantly being defeated and suffer a lot. However, the outbreak of the war had also significantly improved the fighting skills of the players of the Asian server. Using war to nurture war, the plan that the players of other servers had long been implementing had finally been carried out in the Asian server. For the first time, the epic and hot-blooded battlefield had also inspired the determination of the players of the Asian server to become stronger. During this period, the Asian server had given birth to several players who were close to the cheat level. There was even a player who obtained the recognition of the remnant consciousness of the ancient god, the skeleton monk, during his exploration in the dry bone forest and obtained part of the inheritance. The rise of the entire Asian server was unstoppable, and it was advancing triumphantly. Next was the European server. The European server, which was known as the second strongest among the 5 servers, had successfully occupied an entire region after Baiki during this period. The battle with Yuanshu had also come to an end in this half a year's time. Using war to nurture war, the players of the European server were getting stronger and stronger, while Yuanshu's army was getting weaker and weaker. Their defeat had long been apparent, and the outcome was only a matter of time. It was also during this half a year's time that the final battle for the land of Sangshu broke out. In this battle, he was crowned as a god, with Hitorigami, who was half a step in the Ghost Emperor realm, and dozens of zombie spirits who were half a step into the Ghost King realm, he was unstoppable on the battlefield. Apart from Yuanshu, no one could face him head-on. including the few Ghost Kings under Yuan-Shu. None of them had the power to fight Hu-He. The name of the great demon king resounded throughout the 5 servers. He was one of the strongest cheaters at this stage, perhaps even number 1. It was also during this final battle that Hu-He, with the help of the evil king, killed Yuan-Shu with his own hands and fulfilled the promise he made to his brother back then: revenge. The successful killing of Yuan-Shu also made Hu-He the first player in the game to obtain the achievement of killing a Ghost Emperor Realm expert. After Yuan-Shu's death, the players of the European server completely occupied the entire land of Sangshu and obtained a large number of resource points, which also accelerated the speed of development. During this period, there was another episode in the European server. That was the addition of an NPC. Her name was Xian Ku, an extremely beautiful woman with a sweet smile. She was called a goddess by the players of the European server. Finally, Sangshu's beautiful days began. As an agent of the European server working for Lu Wu, he had been looking forward to this day for a long time. Finally, his wish came true in this half a year's time. With Lu Wu's help, he successfully resurrected Xian Ku. He thought that they would be separated forever, but he did not expect to be able to work together again. Life was like a dream, but he was willing to indulge in it. Sangshu was filled with gratitude towards Lu Wu and Lil Bailey. He was even more determined to work hard for Lu Wu and manage the European server well. He even wanted to build a powerful army for Lu Wu that surpassed the original server. After that, it was the unyielding server. Based on the original totem as the foundation, the unyielding server grew rapidly in the early stages. In this half a year, the unyielding server players had also successfully annexed the Beast tribe after a tough battle. After the tragic war, their rewards were also huge. They obtained a huge spirit beast farm and several resource production points. The unyielding server had finally gained a foothold in the Shanfeng land. However, their crisis was not over yet. The counterattack from the entire Qinyo tribe was imminent. This war was unavoidable. However, the unyielding server players were full of confidence. Although the war was difficult, they had discovered the huge advantage of being a player. Death was never scary to them. As a player, their only weakness was that they did not have soul coins. To sum it up, they were poor. Apart from bringing death, war could also make them rich quickly. In order to catch up with the other servers, they were willing to work hard and strive to catch up with the other servers. Finally, it was the original server. The original server, which had always existed as the father server, was always at the forefront in the battle for hegemony. This half a year was no exception. In this half a year, the development of the original server could be described as rapid. Apart from the new players, the old players had basically all reached the Ghost Commander level. Most of the pro players had also advanced to the Ghost General level. As for the original server's cheaters, they were still synonymous with the strongest. Their performance in the cross-server competition was extremely eye-catching. Although the official individual competition had yet to be launched, the fact that they were the strongest in terms of overall strength was clear to the players in other servers, even if they were unwilling to admit it. As for the original server's cheaters, they had a nickname that resounded throughout the entire server: 9 Elemental Sword Deity, AO Jian Ghost Manipulation Deity, 7 Assassin Deity, Murphy Little Pomelo Thunderbolt Fist Deity, Lu Chai Demonic God Apostle, Gu Yu Invincible Diamond, Yuan Fong Wei. The strength of these players in terms of individual strength had attracted the attention of all the players in the server. After witnessing countless fierce confrontations in cross-server individual competitions, the players became more and more enthusiastic about the cheaters. They all wanted to reach the peak and become a member of the cheaters. At the same time, Lu had also updated all the major servers in this half a year. Apart from the original server, which had the most updates, the European server had already entered the extraterritorial hegemony version. Meanwhile, the unyielding server and the Asia server had also started the internal hegemony version. The appearance of each new expansion pack symbolized a milestone in the progress of the game. Because of this, the major server forums had also opened a new section called Milestone to record the stories of the battle in the past 3 years. The battle had been running for 3 years, and countless players had treated it as their home in another world. During this period, the impact of the battle on reality had also become greater. Just now, Lu Wu received a call from Wu Guai, who told him piece of news. This year's E3 gaming exhibition was about to begin, and he asked if he wanted to come and watch it in person. Chapter 566. Faced with Wu Guai's question, Lu Wu suddenly remembered that Battle was participating in this year's E3 gaming exhibition. As for whether he should go or not, after some hesitation, Lu Wu decided to go and have a look himself. After getting Lu Wu's reply, Wu Guai immediately sent 2 electronic tickets to the exhibition to Lu Wu's phone. He hung up the phone. Lu Wu began to search for information related to this year's E3 gaming exhibition, wanted to learn about it in advance. With a simple search on his phone, news of the E3 gaming exhibition flooded in. While looking at the relevant content, Lu Wu found something that interested him. This year's E3 exhibition would conduct a major evaluation of the existing games and give out various game awards. Moreover, there was no main judge for this evaluation. All players could participate in the evaluation as they were all judges. The categories included Best Graphics, Best Original Game, Best Strategy Game, Best War-Related Game, Best Racing Game, Best Social Game, etc. There were many categories. However, to ensure the fairness of the evaluation, all participating players had to connect to the E3 online website through their gaming platform and provide their gaming time. This was also to prevent the participating game manufacturers from maliciously giving out good or bad reviews. Because of this, major game manufacturers from all over the world participated in this exhibition with their flagship games, all in order to stand out in the evaluation and win the awards. Lu did not think much of these competitors. After all, it was a fact that the current games, whether it was the gameplay or the degree of realism, could not compete with Battle. Lu Wu's confidence also came from his absolute strength. He felt that this time, he might get tired of receiving the awards. After all, Battle was a very inclusive game that basically covered all the game modes. Nurturing, survival, socializing, etc. Of course, Lu would not show up to receive the awards in person. Everything was still left to Wu Gui. He would only go and watch as a passerby. After all, the awards were ultimately fake. What he wanted was a real increase in the number of players. This was the reason why he participated in E3, not for the awards. Of course, it was inevitable that the awards would help promote the game. Therefore, Lu Wu was looking forward to that day, to the outstanding performance of Battle. But soon, Lu Wu did not feel that way, nor did he feel that way. That afternoon, many posts appeared on the forums of all the major servers. Rumor has it that the officials of Battle behind the scenes are going to E3 personally. What do you think? Should I kill him now, or lock him up in a small black room and torture him? Tong Gua's arrogant face. The masked kidnapping team is officially established. At this stage, the number of members in the team is 1/50th. Please sign up. After this mission, we will have an endless supply of soul coins. Everyone in the team is equipped with godly equipment. Action is better than excitement. The mass kidnapping team welcomes you to join us. Let's declare war on the dog officials. I just saw that the tickets for E3 have been sold out. Are you still human? I've been curious about the stupid officials for a long time. At the very least, let me see with my own eyes how powerful they are. Oh my God, once the news of Battle Dog's official presence came out, E3 ticket prices skyrocketed. We can only buy scalp tickets now. It's too damn expensive. Are the lousy officials going to reveal themselves? Brothers who bought the tickets, remember to bring a knife and place it on his neck so that he can start an event and give out soul coins. Oh yes, and open a top-up channel, laughing emoji. Those who can't buy the tickets, I'm going to block the entrance. It's been 3 years. I've waited so long, and now I'm finally going to be exposed. I want to thank him for making such a good game. I'm addicted to it every day, causing me to be single for 3 years. If this goes on, I'll take Battle Dog as my wife for the rest of my life. Angry hammering emoji. We're all Battle Dog players. I hope you could be more civilized and stop fighting and killing. After all, Battle Dog has given me a whole new world. I'm very grateful to the Battle Dog officials, and I'm very impressed by their adherence to their principles and never compromising with the players. For this reason, I'm going to perform 3 consecutive backstabs in front of the lousy officials and kill them. Laughing emoji. The discussions of the players in the forum left Lu Wu dumbfounded. At this moment, he only had one thought in his mind. How did the players know that he was going to E3? For this reason, Lu Wu used the artifact to investigate. In the end, he found out that the news came from Wu Guai, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. During the media interview, the reporter asked Wu Guai if the behind-the-scenes team of Battle Dog would be present. It was because Wu Guai said that the behind-the-scenes boss of Battle Dog would be there, but he would not show up. It was this news that caused a sensation in the Battle Dog gaming circle. Hearing that the lousy officials would be there, the Battle Dog players were extremely excited. The most direct impact was that the price of the E3 tickets had increased by several times. After that, a large number of Battle Dog players squeezed into the E3 gaming official online platform. The huge influx of Battle Dog players almost caused the E3 gaming platform to explode. This made the organizers of the E3 gaming exhibition both happy and helpless. It was a wise decision for E3 to invite Battle Dog to participate in this exhibition. However, the huge popularity brought by Battle Dog was too much for them to handle. For this reason, they could only continue to maintain and repair the platform. There was only one purpose for the Battle Dog players to flood into the E3 gaming platform, and that was to increase their ratings for Battle Dog. However, Lu Wu never expected the players' dirty tricks. This was because these lousy players were not there to increase their ratings, but to increase their negative ratings. Moreover, it was a premeditated attempt to increase the number of Battle Dog players and reduce the sharing of resources. For this reason, the players of the 5 major server forums joined forces for the first time, with the goal of defeating the lousy officials. The enthusiasm of the Battle Dog players was at an all-time high. However, due to the fact that the time spent online was required to be displayed in the game's rating system, the Battle Alliance players inadvertently exposed the truth. At this time, the comment section of E3 Battle Dog Online was filled with Battle Dog players' comments. All-powerful gaming time. 13,231 hours. Newbies, take note. Don't pay attention to this game and don't play it. It's not fun at all. It's a rubbish game. You'll regret it if you play it. 1-star negative review. Watching you act cool. Gaming time. 12,785 hours. This game is really not fun. It's rubbish just by looking at it. How can such a lousy game participate in the E3 gaming exhibition? Everyone, listen to my advice. Don't play it. I uninstalled it after a minute after downloading it. 1-star negative review. Astro Boy, gaming time. 9,987 hours. Ahem. I was worried at first, but I'm relieved after reading everyone's comments. However, didn't you guys realize what the duration of the game exposed? Although they're all lies, funny. 1-star negative review. Drink more hot water. Gaming time. 7,621 hours. I won't say much else. I've only played this game for a year. Look at my gaming time. Facepalm. This game is so hard that I don't want to go back to reality. So I must give it a bad review. Newbies, please don't play it. It's fun for a while, but your life will be ruined in the hands of Battle Dog. 1-star negative review. Charming Puppy Egg. Gaming time. 21,485 hours. Look at my gaming time. This game has only been released for 3 years, and I've already played for so long. I advise newbies to be careful when playing. It's poisonous, and there's no antidote. Bald. JPG. Blowing Wind in History. 1,012 hours online. Seeing the generosity of the seniors. This newbie admits defeat. However, my 1,012 hours online only took a month and a half. Bald +1. LCD. Midnight. 22,482 hours of online time. Comrades above, here I come. Smells good, funny. 1-star negative review. Compared to the comment section of other games, the comment section of Battle Online was extremely different. In particular, the amount of time the players spent online in the comment section shocked the other players who entered the comment section. It was common to play for tens of thousands of hours, and even a few thousand hours were rare. They could not understand what kind of game this was. One had to know that the thousands of hours of online players in the comment section of other games were basically die-hard fans. However, in Battle's comment section, the thousands of hours of online time was considered as a younger brother. In fact, he was not even considered as a younger brother. The players who were browsing the E3 online platform and looking for new games were dumbfounded. Moreover, Battle's ratings were all 1-star negative. Coupled with the godlike length of time spent online in the comment section, the players who were unaware of the situation found it very strange. At this moment, the first thought of many players who entered the comment section of Battle Online and saw the negative reviews was, since it's not fun, what the hell is with the amount of time spent online in the game? Connecting with the game's platform and displaying the length of time the players who commented on the game had spent online was originally set up by the E3 developers to prevent malicious manipulation of ratings. It was also because of this that Battle Online players exposed the truth. Apart from the star rating, the length of time spent online was also a very important criterion. Although the players who commented on the game were calling it a trashy game, the length of time spent online was the actual data. The negative review incident by Battle Online players naturally caught the attention of the gaming media. Luwu did not even need to spend any money before they started reporting on it. Before the official start of the E3 exhibition, it had already attracted the attention of a large number of new players. Luwu could not help but roll his eyes at the players' ridiculous actions. Although these Battle Online players tried all sorts of ways to dissuade new players from playing the game on the E3 online platform, the ones who played the game the most were still the players who scolded Battle Online as a trashy game. Luwu was too lazy to care about this, because he was not interested in these awards. What he wanted was the exposure of the game, to let more people know about Battle Royale. This negative review incident was a great advertisement for the game. However, to Luwu's surprise, the situation took a turn for the better very quickly. One day before the start of the E3 exhibition, the 1-star negative reviews were all changed to 5-star positive reviews. The reason was simple. Scolding was one thing, but the players still loved Battle Royale. This showy move was just to prove to the Battle Online officials that the power of the players was not to be underestimated. They asked them to love the players, organize more events, and give more soul coins. Therefore, after some suppression, the Battle Online players raised the banner of Battle Online is the best and began to give full marks for Battle Online. Awards such as Best Game, Best Original Work, Best Social Interaction, and so on. The Battle Online players only had one thought: we want them all. In short, Battle Online is the best in the world. Chapter 567. Instead, he held Lil Bei Li's hand and strolled around the A1 area. She was obviously so cute. So how could she say such cruel words? As for the evil forces that entered the exhibition hall with Luwu, they were already rushing toward the A3 exhibition hall aggressively. Listen, that's what a human should say. If the exhibition hall was open to the public, the huge crowd would not be able to accommodate it. In Luwu's opinion, the players had too many soul coins and were in need of exploitation. This game was a classic whether it was in the industry or among the players. The meme of Yang Xin, the Lightning King, was also created because of Warcraft. Even the CCTV criticized this game, because he was surrounded by players from Battle Royale, especially the few masked guys. Although he could not see their expressions, Luwu could vaguely feel the murderous aura emanating from them. They even waved their broadswords from time to time. When Warcraft entered Chi Dragon in 2005, many players were addicted to it. Since it was rare for him to be here, he naturally wanted to see the flagship games of this year from other manufacturers. When World of Warcraft, the classic MMO game, began to decline, Blizzard had a crazy plan to create a super game to replace World of Warcraft. Luwu was helpless when his gluttonous nature was exposed. Due to the strict security system in the exhibition hall, all controlled weapons, such as knives, were prohibited. There were countries, factions, and even a powerful social system. However, there was an exception, and that was these weapons that were known as cosplay props. Grudge +4. He was also looking forward to the competition between the flagship games of the major game manufacturers in this E3 game exhibition. He hoped to find a game that he liked to satisfy his future needs. These works reminded Lu Wu of his childhood, when he was obsessed with games. Since the content of Titan was too complicated and the idea was too advanced, the Titan project was ultimately aborted. In this era, games were the essential spice of life for many young people. Their influence had far exceeded what it used to be, and they were the most influential entertainment industry. This had something to do with the game Titan that was currently withdrawn from the exhibition hall. Lil Bailey held Lu Wu's hand as they walked along the crowd. Her eyes were always focused on the snacks in the hands of other players in line, and she was almost drooling. The opening of the exhibition came as the players waited expectantly. Even in this era where there were so many games, players were still very hungry for good games. This gaming exhibition was a place for these players to find good games. Lu Wu even saw a guy holding a dagger mumble, "You're not going to die." However, it was a fact that most of the developers in the early days of the game were die-hard Warcraft fans. With the improvement of virtual equipment, this was the golden age of virtual games. In the early days, Blizzard was undoubtedly a mythical existence in the hearts of the players. The world of Warcraft that they developed was considered an unsurpassable MMO, massively multiplayer online game. However, that was all in the past. My backstab is thirsting for blood. As the boss behind the game, Lu Wu could feel the murderous aura surrounding him. They had spent too much energy on Titan, and Blizzard didn't have any new games to connect with the era of new games. The reason was that the exhibition was too popular. At that time, there was a saying in the gaming circle, "Blizzard's products must be the best." He looked like he was leveling up and killing. Many gameplay styles were also developed from World of Warcraft, which was then copied by other game manufacturers. This was because this game was one that he was looking forward to, but Lu Wu thought that it was a series that he would only see in his lifetime. He didn't think that he would be able to see the release of Titan while he was still alive. Even a game manufacturer like Activision Blizzard didn't have it in the past. These visitors came from all over the world, but they had one thing in common. They loved games very much. Along the way, Lu Wu had seen a lot of these battle players, and most of them came in groups. Lu Wu knew about this part of Blizzard's history, and he felt a little emotional when he saw the cinematic of Titan on EA's booth. The Battle League players took advantage of this cleverly, and they brought weapons that could be found in the shop of Battle League. Unlike hundreds of years ago, the E3 gaming exhibition was only open to industry insiders, such as game designers, game journalists, media, and so on. This was because Blizzard wanted to create a game similar to the current Battle Online, a game that covered all the gameplay styles, and a world that was similar to the size of Earth. At this moment, the E3 exhibition hall was already crowded with people. This year's E3 gaming exhibition was such a grand event in the gaming industry. For example, the flagship game released by the Polish idiot this year, Cyberpunk 2377. For this, the Battle League players even prepared a batch of special tools. At the beginning of the 21st century, 80% of the earliest group of game developers were loyal World of Warcraft players, and basically all of them had played this game. Lu Wu even saw a group of masked players wearing t-shirts with the demonic god's logo printed on it. There were exactly 50 of them. This instantly reminded Lu Wu of the recruitment on the forum and the few Chinibu players who wanted to kidnap him in exchange for godly equipment. They didn't even need the help of godly equipment. Their identities as Battle League players were already written on their faces. This year, Ubisoft released Assassin's Creed, Future World, and Far Cry 46. However, it was this game that ultimately brought down Blizzard. It was around 2007, and for the production of this game, all the project teams under Blizzard were involved, including the entire team of World of Warcraft. From then on, Blizzard began to step down from its pedestal. Blizzard achievements were not limited to just this, such as the Diablo series, StarCraft series, War 3, and so on. Looking at the players' posture, it didn't seem like they were joking at all, which made Lu Wu very embarrassed. These B** stars were getting more and more unbridled. They really deserve to be exploited. I'll suppress them when I get back. How much hatred? How much hatred? Some of them were cosplaying as NPCs in battle. Some were holding weapons and tools made by Little Bailey in the game, and some were wearing shirts with the logo Battle League #1 printed on it. Moreover, Lu Wu could tell that these Battle League players were up to no good at all. Moreover, it was more than 4 billion from 300 years ago. Grudge +1. The reason was that the Titan project had dealt a heavy blow to Blizzard during its glorious period. Lu Wu took out his phone to confirm, and after a security scan, he successfully entered. After confirming the booth of Battle League, Lu Wu didn't go straight there. He followed the team into the A1 exhibition hall, where soothing music was playing, and the staff at the various booths were already ready to welcome the visitors. These parents were also crazy about games when they were young, spent money on them, and even stayed up late to watch esports competitions. It would be very easy to educate their children based on their interests. This was also the good side of games for many parents. After waiting for about half an hour, Lu Wu finally arrived at the ticket gate. At the same time, in order to accommodate more visitors, the venue was renovated and the area was expanded by more than 10 times. Even now, there were still too many games that were influenced by World of Warcraft. Grudge +3. For this, Blizzard invested a large amount of funds. The initial investment was $100 million, and the subsequent investment reached $700 million, which was equivalent to more than 4 billion renminbi. On the screen, there was a scrolling display of the exhibition hall area where the major game manufacturers were located, as well as the specific booth number. There was no doubt that the Warcraft at its peak was a legend. For example, words like hammering, torturing, beheading, rubbing on the ground, and so on were naturally referring to the official of Battle League, Lu Wu. That was the youth that he had once lost. He even heard a cute girl beside him say to her partner that if she saw the official later, she would smash his head with the staff in her hand. As he walked along the marked passage to enter the exhibition hall, Lu Wu noticed that the expressions of the players around him seemed to be getting more and more ferocious. At that time, many game manufacturers did not even dare to imagine that the production cost of a game could reach such a level. Along the way, Lu Wu realized that many of the games released by the major game manufacturers this year were the ones that he had been looking forward to. He even thought that they would be Series 3A masterpieces in his lifetime. Grudge +2. It could be said that this generation of parents understood their children very well, and they had a common language. Lu Wu did not know whether to laugh or cry, but he would not take it seriously. This game was also considered by many media outlets to be Battle Royale's biggest opponent today. There's already such news even before the start of E3. It was precisely because of these reasons that the rise of the game industry was unstoppable. Although the legacy of the Titan project created games such as Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm, which were also popular for a while, the subsequent Blizzard was showing signs of fatigue. America, Los Angeles. Lu Wu could not help but feel a little emotional when he saw the Titan character models and virtual CG images on EA's booth. Battle Online. Seat A3-1. Many parents would even play games with their children, leading them to explore the wonderful world in the game. However, among these games, the one that caught Lu Wu's attention the most was Titan, the flagship game released by Activision Blizzard this year. However, it was different now. In order to attract more game lovers and expand the influence of E3, this tradition was abandoned 100 years ago and changed to a ticket system. At that moment, Lu Wu set his eyes on a huge monitor hanging in the center of the exhibition hall. However, it could also be said that Titan was not a product of that era. As the doors of the exhibition hall opened, the players who were waiting outside swarmed in. As long as it did not affect their studies, playing games was considered a spice in their lives by the parents. It was also an essential conversation topic for their children to socialize with their peers, so they would not be seen as a scourge. As for how Lu Wu knew that these people were Battle League players, it was not because of the artifacts detection, but because of the way they dressed. At that moment, Lu Wu mixed into the crowd with Lil Bailey. The opening day of the annual E3 game exhibition brought a huge flow of tourists to the city. There were also Nintendo's Zelda series, the Gay Club's Star Wars series, the Card Club's Resident Evil sequels, and so on. In this new era, no parents would think that it was unreasonable for their children to like playing games, because they were also the generation that had been baptized by games, so they could understand their children's thoughts very well. Chapter 568. Luwu suddenly had the urge to try out the game when he saw the display of Titan on EA's booth. He immediately led Lil Bei Li to the front of the booth. Upon seeing this, the staff in the booth smiled at Luwu and said, "Sir, would you like to try it out?" Luwu nodded, then led Lil Bei Li to the booth under the staff's instruction and sat down. The staff brought the virtual reality helmet and passed it to Luwu, then looked at Lil Bei Li. "She doesn't need it. One is enough." Luwu smiled. The staff nodded and began to introduce the game. Luwu listened attentively. These things were more or less useful to him because he was now an architect of a game world. After listening to the introduction, Luwu put on the virtual reality helmet and entered the game under the staff's guidance. However, Luwu quit the game after a while. He had to admit that the game was really good. The degree of realism was far better than all the games at this stage. However, compared to Battle, the difference was still too big. The most obvious point was that leveling up in the game did not change one's body, which was far inferior to Battle. At this moment, Luwu suddenly felt pity for Blizzard. Why do you have to meet him? He was definitely going to be defeated. "What's wrong, sir? Are you unhappy with the game?" The staff was surprised to see Luwu take off the virtual reality helmet. "No, the game is very good. Good luck." Luwu smiled faintly. He held Lil Bei Li's hand and walked out of the EA booth, leaving behind a dumbfounded staff. Although Luwu used to be a fan of Blizzard, but Battle was the best in the world, and he did not accept any rebuttals. After all, Battle was his own son. Luwu walked slowly, stopping every now and then. He arrived at the end of Hall A1. There were two choices in front, Hall A2 and Hall A3. After some thought, Luwu walked to Hall A3, where the battle booth was located. The moment he entered the hall, Luwu was stunned by the scene in front of him. There was a sea of people in front of the battle booth at the first spot. A large group of cosplayers formed a circle around the booth, forming a long queue of 16 people. One of the queues had already reached the entrance of Hall A1 from Hall A3. Luwu also saw the cosplayers who had threatened to smash his head into pieces. They were also queuing up at the moment. Moreover, all of them had obedient looks on their faces. It was impossible to tell that they were the evil forces from before. This piqued Luwu's curiosity. It was completely different from what he had imagined. At this point, Luwu could not help but ask the masked man who was also queuing up. "I have a question. Didn't you say that you were going to smash the heads of the damned officials? Why are you queuing up now?" When Masked Man heard this, he could not help but be stunned. "Are you a Battle League player too?" Luwu nodded. "Yeah, he's a newbie." "Then hurry up and queue up. Don't miss out on getting one." "Oh yeah, don't even think about cutting the queue. You know how powerful Battle League players are. You should be more humble as a newbie. What are you guys fighting over?" Luwu was stunned. He did not understand what they were talking about. "Figurines. I might have a chance to get the figurines of the NPCs from the major servers while I queue up. It'll be too late if I wait. I'm hoping to get a figurine of a lady from the Wood Spirit clan, or Tongwa." As he spoke, the masked man had an expectant look on his face. Luwu nodded in realization. Only then did he remember that Wu Guai did mention to him that he would create a batch of figurines of Battle League's NPCs during this E3 gaming exhibition. He would give them to the players as gifts during the exhibition. After understanding the reason, Luwu could not help but laugh as he looked at the group of Battle League players who were previously vicious wolves queuing up obediently like little lambs. "Brother, what are you laughing at? Hurry up and queue up. It'll be gone soon." The masked man could not help but remind Luwu when he saw him standing there with a silly smile on his face. Luwu thought about it and felt helpless, so he went to the back of the line. Just as the masked man said, the number of players in Hall A3 was increasing rapidly as more and more players passed through the security check. At this moment, Luwu noticed that the staff at the A3 gaming booth had a resentful look on their faces. This was because the Battle League players had already queued up to their booth. At first, they were excited that there would be players coming to experience the flagship game. However, it turned out that they were all Battle League players. Although these players were saying things like, sorry, excuse me, borrow my seat, and so on, they still felt extremely resentful. They felt that they could not stay in Hall A3 anymore. What was there to showcase when it was filled with Battle League players? Of course, this was only one of the reasons for their resentment. There was also a portion of the booth staff who were also Battle League players. Seeing other players queuing up to get their figurines while they could only stick to their posts was torturous for them. They wanted to join the queue very much, especially when they saw other players getting their favorite figurines at the Battle League booth. They were so jealous that they were about to lose their minds. In less than half an hour, Hall A3 was full and there was no room for any more players. At this moment, the players who wanted to enter but could not do so could only curse outside the passageway. Their hearts were filled with resentment, hating that they were not in front of the queue. At this time, Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li had also queued up in front of the booth. Seeing that Lu Wu was observing the situation inside the booth, the staff passed the lucky draw box to Lu Wu and said apologetically, "Sir, can you hurry up and draw the lucky draw? Sir, can you hurry up and draw the lottery? There's still many players waiting behind." Lu Wu nodded and reached his hand into the lucky draw box. When Lu Wu took out the piece of paper that he had grabbed, the surrounding air suddenly froze. At this time, Lu Wu was holding a golden piece of paper. There was a line of words written on it, Collector's Edition Tonghua Figurine. At this moment, Lu Wu once again felt the murderous aura coming from all directions. He could vaguely hear the whispers around him. Damn lucky Emperor, the only Collector's Edition figurine was taken away. Damn it, make me a human. I'm going crazy. I want this figurine too. I don't know if he will sell it to me. Brother, I have a bold idea. Didn't we bring weapons? Let's do it. Oh my God, it's the Collector's Edition. Why didn't I get it? He's so lucky. He'll be ganged up on. Let me bear this pain. I'll take the ganging up on him. Listening to the whispers of the players around him, Lu Wu was dumbfounded. In fact, he had no interest in the figurine at all. After all, he could meet the real person anytime he wanted. The reason he queued was just to observe the layout of the battle booth from a close distance. However, since the queue was already in front of him, it would be weird if he didn't draw the lucky draw. Hence, he grabbed it casually. He, who wanted to keep a low profile, instantly became the center of attention. At this moment, Lu Wu really wanted to say something. Can I not take it? However, he couldn't say that. Lu Wu knew very well that insulting battle would only result in a beating. Although these players often scolded in the forum, they were the only ones allowed to do so. They were still very protective of battle's image. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a fight in Japan. Therefore, Lu Wu felt that if he said that he did not want it, he would definitely be dragged into a corner by battle's die-hard fans and have his head smashed. Congratulations, you have won the only Collector's Edition figurine this time, the staff in the booth said to Lu Wu with a smile after a brief moment of surprise. Then, he took out a golden box from under the counter and handed it to Lu Wu. Lu Wu thought for a while and took it. Instantly, the murderous aura around him intensified. These battle players had experienced the battlefield, and they already had the murderous aura of a soldier. At this moment, it was about to materialize and target Lu Wu. At this moment, Lu Wu felt extremely sad. I wanted to keep a low profile. How did it turn out like this? My damn luck. Brother, name a price, I'll buy it. At this moment, a player walked to Lu Wu's side and looked at him expectantly. Upon hearing this, Lu Wu apologized and pulled Lil Bailey away from the man. As he squeezed his way to the other exhibition halls with Lil Bailey, Lu Wu heard many inquiries from battle players. This gave him a headache. However, he rejected all of them. After all, it was his game. Since he had won it, he couldn't sell it. This was the least he could do out of respect. His behavior also made the players who wanted the Collector's Edition figurine of Tonghua feel resentful. They were all cursing in their hearts. The lucky Emperor will die a horrible death. Lu Wu heaved a sigh of relief when he finally walked out of Exhibition Hall A3 with Lil Bailey. The player's passion for battle had exceeded his expectations. At this moment, Lu Wu was in Exhibition Hall A4. However, he had lost interest in strolling around. Instead, he brought Lil Bailey to find a place to sit down. They were waiting for the awards ceremony to begin. At this moment, Lil Bailey raised her head and looked at Lu Wu. Big Cat, do you know why you got the collector's edition figurine? Lu Wu was a little shocked when he heard this. Isn't it because I'm lucky? Of course not. It's because you've cultivated the Emperor's mirror. The luck of the human race is on you. In other words, you have the luck of the lucky Emperor. There's such an effect. Of course, the Emperor is the leader of the human race. It's inevitable for him to gather the luck of the human race, Lil Bailey said proudly. Upon hearing this, Lu Wu suddenly understood. Before he met Lil Bailey, he had never won a prize in a lottery. He couldn't even draw an SSR card when he played games. Today's performance was completely different from before. Your luck will only get better in the future. As the cultivation of the Emperor's mirror deepens and the power of the human race grows, your luck will continue to improve. Lu Wu nodded and reached out to rub Lil Bailey's head. Just as he was about to speak, his phone rang. He picked up the phone and heard Wu Guai's voice. Brother Lu, where are you now? The awards ceremony will begin in 2 hours. I have a seat near the front for you, right next to me. When he heard that Wu Gui had a seat near the front for him, Lu Wu was about to agree. However, when he heard what Wu Gui said, he immediately gave up on the idea. What a joke. How could he sit next to Wu Gui? What if the players suspected that he was a member of the behind-the-scenes team of battle? If that really happened, it would be difficult for him to even attend E3. These players who were extremely thirsty for soul coins were known as gangsters in the underworld. They were not to be trifled with. No, I'll just watch from far. Lu Wu answered immediately. Why? Wu Gui was stunned. I have good eyesight. Chapter 569. After rejecting Wu Gui's invitation, Lu Wu stopped wandering around and found a place to sit down. While chatting with Bailey, he waited for the awards ceremony to begin. After experiencing Blizzard's flagship game, Titan, Lu Wu understood that there was no other game in this era that could compete with Battle Royale. To Lu Wu, this might be a tragedy for many game manufacturers, but he also knew that it would be a golden age for the players. 2 hours passed quickly as he chatted with Lil Bailey. The E3 Gaming Awards ceremony had officially begun. Seeing the notification that appeared on the big screen in the center of the exhibition hall, Lu Wu immediately stood up and held Lil Bailey's hand as they walked to the award area. The award area was also the size of an exhibition hall. However, not everyone could enter this exhibition hall, as they had to verify the eligibility of the electronic tickets of the entrance. This threshold was mainly set up to prevent a huge influx of people, which would make it difficult for the awards to proceed smoothly. The 2 tickets in Lu Wu's hand were given by Wu Gui, so naturally, there was no problem. After passing the ticket check, they walked straight into the exhibition hall. The interior was structured like a theater. At the front was a podium and a 3-meter-tall holographic projection device. Apart from the first 2 rows, the visitors who entered the hall could choose their seats at will. Since he was late, Lu Wu naturally only had the seat at the back. Lu Wu didn't care about this and dragged Lil Bailey to the last row. While waiting, Lu Wu suddenly raised his head and looked at the VIP passage in front of him. At this moment, a group of people walked out and entered the hall. Lu Wu was familiar with one of them. It was Wu Gui. At this moment, Wu Gui was surrounded by the crowd and looked helpless. It could be said that he had to bear all the pain that Lu Wu was supposed to bear. The people around him were all inquiring about the content of Battle Royale. Some of them were even probing him with information about the production team behind the scenes. Their goal was simple. They wanted to poach people from battle. This was very common in the game industry. It could be said that the development of the game industry was dominated by the vicious competition of poaching people. Now, it was even more so. This was because the game industry had always been in a state of scarcity. For example, the first batch of game developers in Dragon Nation who worked in major game manufacturers were basically poached by them from Shanda. Another example was Warcraft's famous chief game designer, Ghost Crab, who was poached by Fist and became the chief designer of League of Legends. There were many other similar poaching stories. This poaching tradition had been well preserved until now. Therefore, in the eyes of these game manufacturers, as long as they offered enough benefits, they might be able to poach the research and development team behind the scenes of Battle Royale. Every major game manufacturer had long been envious of the developers behind the scenes who were able to produce such an epic-making game like Battle. Thus, since it was rare for him to meet Wu Guai, he naturally wanted to sound him out and even try to dig into him. However, apart from Lu Wu, Wu Guai did not know any of the R&D personnel. Although she had requested to meet him a few times, Lu Wu had always declined. So at this moment, he really wanted to say, I only know the King boss, Battle God. Do you guys want to poach him? Lu Wu, who had the strength of a ghost king, naturally heard the conversation between the game producers and Wu Guai. He immediately turned his head to look at Lil Bailey, who was at Gu Yu's stall, and a smile appeared on his face. This was because there was only one person in the R&D team of Battle Royale, and that was Lil Bailey. Moreover, she was bound to him, the kind that could not be poached away. Thinking of this, he subconsciously reached out and rubbed Lil Bailey's little head. Lil Bailey immediately gave him a look of disdain. After Wu Guai and the others took their seats, the game awards officially began. At this time, the person in charge of the E3 organizers walked onto the stage, and a virtual image was activated. A data panel suddenly appeared in front of the audience. It recorded the ratings of the major games at this stage. At this moment, Battle Online was at the top of the list. The total online time was followed by a long string of zeros. It could be said that the zeros were enough to hang the second place, Galaxy Online, and its market share was as high as a terrifying 53%. This kind of achievement had never been seen before, except during the era when the game was just starting out and was very scarce. The data had already proved the dominance of Battle Royale in this era. This was also a fact that the major game manufacturers did not want to admit. At this time, the person in charge of the E3 exhibition, who was standing on the stage, clicked on the introduction interface of Battle Online. Suddenly, the game cinematics appeared in front of the audience, and the person in charge began to introduce the game. However, compared to the comprehensive data introduction of other games, Battle Online had pitifully little information, and there were all kinds of question marks behind it. Game, Battle Online, head of production, game engine, name of production team, agent, 173 Wu Guai game copyright owner. These question marks added a sense of mystery to Battle Online. The E3 organizers were very helpless about this. They had asked Wu Guai about this, but they could not get any useful information. According to Wu Guai, although he was the agent, he did not know anything. Left with no choice, the E3 organizers could only collect the media's descriptions to introduce the game. After a round of introduction, the person in charge suddenly said, "Now, let's welcome Battle Agent, Mr. Wu Guai, to speak." At this moment, everyone in the room suddenly perked up. This was because there was a very important segment at this time, and that was the question. In this regard, Wu Guai was a little nervous. After all, he really did not know anything. However, after he walked up to the stage, he still opened his mouth and said, "Actually, I don't know much about Battle Online, but please ask me questions, and I'll try my best to answer them." At this moment, pairs of hands were raised, and everyone stared at Wu Guai with anticipation. Seeing this, Wu Guai began to ask questions. "Mr. Wu Guai, I would like to ask, how many employees are there in such a mysterious team behind Battle Online? How did they manage to keep it so secret?" I'm not sure. I'm just the agent. I would like to ask, with such a large number of Battle Online players, the server maintenance fee should be very high. If they continue to burn money like this, will there be a day when they can't support it? Is there a need to start a charging system, even if it doesn't affect the balance of the game? No. I've also asked the behind-the-scenes boss about this, and he told me clearly that there will be no charges and that they will resolutely implement the principle of generating electricity with love. When will that dog of a developer distribute soul coins? When will they start signing in rewards? And when will they give out artifacts? Question from a Battle Online player. As far as I know, it's impossible in this lifetime. When will the dog of a developer strengthen our European server and let us surpass the original server? I'm just the agent. I'm not in charge of the internal operations of the game, and I have no right to interfere with the content of the game. Is the boss of Battle Online here today? I remember you mentioned last time that he would be at E3 as well. He's here, but forgive me for not being able to reveal his identity. Then, is he at the awards ceremony now? He should be. Wu Guai smirked as he said this. Wu Guai, you hold a grudge +5. Hearing Wu Guai's answer, Lu Wu could not help but grit his teeth. As for the seated Battle Online players, when they heard that the behind-the-scenes boss of Battle Online was also present, their expressions gradually turned ferocious. They began to turn their heads and look around suspiciously, trying to use their sharp sense of smell to locate that damn dog of a developer. Looking at the murderous gazes sweeping over him, Lu Wu, holding a grudge +6, sensing that the atmosphere in the venue was not right, the person in charge quickly stepped forward and signaled that Wu Gui's speech was over. Hearing this, Wu Gui walked off the stage without hesitation. In fact, he was also very sad, feeling that he had become Lu Wu's shield and a target for everyone to vent their anger on. It would be fine if he knew some inside information, but the problem was that he was always being misunderstood, even though he knew nothing. However, when Wu Gui said that the behind-the-scenes boss of Battle Online might be in the venue, the gazes that had been staring at him immediately faded away. Now, this group of hungry wolves began to search for the more important behind-the-scenes boss of Battle Online. They would give him a backstab filled with love. Since Battle Online was introduced first, the players were no longer paying attention to the subsequent introductions of the game. Even the person in charge of the game manufacturers who did not play Battle Online was secretly searching for Lu Wu, hoping to collaborate with him. Although they knew that it was impossible for them to obtain the agency rights of Battle Online, they still had another goal, which was to obtain the authorization of Battle Online's game engine. They believed that the behind-the-scenes boss of Battle Online would not reject this request. After all, authorizing the game engine would not affect the game in any way. Therefore, these game manufacturers felt that as long as they offered a high price, they would definitely stand chance. This was just like Epic in the past. This was originally a game company, until they developed the Unreal 4 engine. Since then, they have been living a life of earning money while lying down. It could be said that with the Unreal 4 engine, Epic could earn a huge amount of money every year in licensing fees. As for Battle Online, in the eyes of these major game manufacturers, the high degree of realism in the game must be inseparable from the game engine. Of course, they could not imitate it by relying on their own abilities, but there was still a shortcut, which was to obtain the authorization of the game engine. At this moment, everyone in the room had their own thoughts, and everyone they looked at was suspicious. Although Lu Wu had the strength of a Ghost King, he still felt very sad at this moment. If he was discovered, he could not possibly start a massacre. As the descendant of Battle Online, many of the people in the room were his future subordinates. According to the saying that those who cultivated the Emperor's mirror would become the Emperor, all the humans in the world were his people. Therefore, they were all his people, and he could not kill them. Fortunately, although these gazes swept past Lu Wu, they did not linger for too long. From their point of view, Lu Wu looked too young to be the behind-the-scenes boss of Battle Online. On the other hand, those who looked more mature became the main targets of suspicion. The awards ceremony, which was supposed to focus on the flagship games of major game manufacturers, instantly became a scene of investigation. Moreover, there was only one criminal, and the rest were all Sherlock Holmes. At the final awards ceremony, just as Lu Wu had expected, Battle Online won almost all the awards. Although Battle Online had a good reputation among the players, it had never won any awards to prove its worth. However, at this E3 exhibition, Battle Online was officially crowned a god. Lu Wu could already see the scene of a large number of new players flooding into the venue. After the awards ceremony officially ended, Lu Wu was about to walk out of the venue with Lil Bailey. However, he was shocked to find that the entrance was surrounded by a lot of people. These evil Battle Online players were trying to find Lu Wu from the vast sea of people and kidnap him, the kind that could only be redeemed with high soul coins. Seeing this scene, Lu Wu smiled indifferently. Naturally, he would not be calculative about it. That was because they were all gamers who loved the game battle, and they would be his future subordinates. As the future leader of the human race, Lu Wu still had this bit of magnanimity. Therefore, I will hold a grudge, and all of you can wait for your death. Just wait for me to squeeze all of your soul coins dry, and I will let you know the wrath of a privileged dog. Chapter 570. The E3 exhibition that day left Lu Wu with a lingering fear. The players who came out of the award hall spread the news that the boss behind the scenes of Battle Royale was present. In order to catch this mysterious boss behind the scenes, the players spontaneously united and formed layers of interrogation checkpoints. They swore to catch him and talk to him about the benefits of the game. Fortunately, although these players knew that Lu Wu was present, they did not know what he looked like or how old he was. They could only ask with a pale face, "Are you the boss of Battle Royale? I think you're a little suspicious. Don't tell me it's you. Stop pretending. I know it's you. Hurry up and admit it." They coaxed Lu Wu with such words in an attempt to catch him. In this regard, Lu Wu could only say that this batch of players was still too young. After all, he would not admit it even if he died, and the players did not suspect him too much. After all, Lu Wu, who was holding the hand of a silly little lowly, did not look like the boss with 3 heads and 6 arms that the players once described in the forum. Therefore, Lu Wu managed to muddle through. On that day, the forum was even more heated because of this matter. The players who did not attend the exhibition were complaining that the players who did attend the exhibition were so incompetent. What a great opportunity to catch the boss behind the scenes, and now they had missed it. When would they be able to talk about benefits in the future? If they were there, they would have caught him on the spot. Anyway, most of the players who did not attend the exhibition expressed the same opinion. That was, if they were there, they would definitely be able to catch the boss behind the scenes. Everyone else who was there was trash. Anyway, the matter was over. No matter how much they bragged about it, it would not be exposed. However, the players were actually very happy in their hearts. They all regarded the game Battle Royale as their second world and home. Although they did not attend the exhibition, they saw that Battle Royale had won almost all the game awards in the live broadcast. It felt like they were the ones who won the awards. On that day, the bullet screen in the live broadcast room was flooded with Battle Royale #1. This kind of player cohesiveness was not found in other games. This wave of E3 publicity also allowed more players in the world to know about the game Battle. Although many people might have heard of this game before, they did not try it. However, after this time, Battle Royale, which had many authoritative certifications and awards, caused a strong reaction in the gaming circle. This was the effect of publicity. It was like a TV commercial. You might not care about it once or twice, but after a few times, it would leave a subtle impression. Driven by curiosity, many players had the urge to try out Battle. They wanted to see if this game was as best in the world as advertised. Lu Wu was never worried about the quality of the game. He was only worried that the players would not play it, because once they tried, it would be difficult to get out again. In fact, he couldn't even chase her away. He, the great Devil King, had the most say in this. There were a few times when he had the thought of uninstalling the game and quitting, but his current state could only be described as wonderful. Lu Wu was the happiest among all the newbies. After returning home, he had been paying attention to this matter. The increase in the number of players also meant an increase in the production of soul coins in the future. The scale of his Scourge army had expanded once again. The other game manufacturers were the ones who suffered the most from Battle Royale's popularity. These players were supposed to be their leaks. Now that they were poached away by campaign, how could they not grit their teeth? However, no matter how they investigated, they could not find any information about the team behind Battle Royale or their boss. Wanting to purchase Battle Royale's virtual engine and create a game similar to Battle Royale was even more of a pipe dream. The darkest hour for the game manufacturers was coming. Battle Royale would step on the corpses of these game manufacturers to reach the top. It was only a matter of time. Meanwhile, in the game, the area of the Mansion of the Dead in Bakey underwent an update with the influx of newbies. The area had more than doubled in this update. It was not only the Mansion of the Dead, but also the main city areas of all the servers. For this, Lu Wu had to spend a large amount of soul coins. His inventory was reduced by more than half. However, Lu Wu was not worried at all. As the saying goes, wool comes from the sheep. If he did not spend money on feed, would he be able to produce wool? Every investment was for a better harvest. Of course, not having money was not a problem. Hence, Lu Wu started a wave of activities. That was the Corium Roulette, the Lucky Roulette. This time, all 5 servers were open at the same time. The method of the activity was to get a lucky draw ticket for 30 soul coins. As for luck, no matter how low it was with such a large number of players, there was bound to be something good. As for the good stuff, Lu Wu would announce it to the whole server. This move was indeed effective. Although many players could smell the danger coming from the lousy officials, they could not help but feel itchy when they saw a server announcement appearing in a short while. Once there was a first, there would be a second, and then there would be a 100th. Tong Gua had the most say in this matter. He clearly knew that Lu Wu wanted to cheat the players of their soul coins. However, for Tong Gua, who loved to gamble, he would think, what if I'm the player who got something good? But when he tried it once, it was followed by 100 times. The soul coins that he had painstakingly saved up for blacksmithing and moving bricks were depleted once again. Not only Tong Gua, but even the simple-minded Wood Spirit clan had been influenced by the players. Spending money was fun for a while. Spending money all the time was fun. What the hell? Many young ladies of the Wood Spirit clan had also become poor. They could only secretly wipe away their tears and continue carrying bricks and brewing wine to earn some money. It was easy to get addicted to spending money. Many hamsters did not like to spend soul coins. They liked to accumulate soul coins because it gave them a sense of security. After this wave, many of the hamster players became autistic, and they even had the thought of dying. Although some players did get the best equipment and high soul coins in return, they felt that they had made a huge profit. This group of people became the lucky emperor that the players on the forum criticized. But even if they made a profit, Lu Wu did not lose anything. He was the biggest winner. After this round, Lu Wu's stock of soul coins was greatly depleted. It could be said that the players spent soul coins on the construction of each server. He did not have to spend a single cent. After holding a grudge for so many times, he had successfully suppressed them. Suddenly, he felt much better and more broad-minded. Most importantly, the players in this event basically blamed their bad luck, not the malicious suppression from the lousy officials. After all, they had always thought that soul coins were only useful to the players. To the lousy officials, they were just a string of numbers. They could produce as many soul coins as they wanted. However, it was always depressing to be judged as an unlucky bloodline because they could not get anything good. This was a fact that every player was unwilling to accept. As the big boss behind the scenes, Lu Wu watched the players cursing and swearing in the forum and laughed heartily. He could not help but smile in relief. What a happy day! The land of Baiki. After the end of the pay-to-win roulette event, the newbie players began to train in the Ghost Mountains and other places according to the guidance of the veteran players. They had officially embarked on the journey of war. The veteran players, on the other hand, set off toward the south of Baiki, where the Arctic Abyss was located. In the past 6 months, Baiki had finally broken out in a war with the Corpse Clan. The cause of the war was not just a problem of resources. In fact, the players also had their own criteria for judging the enemy. For example, the Rahu clan that occupied the land of the 9 luminaries. The players had provoked them many times, but the Rahu clan had never taken the initiative to attack Baiki. They had always adopted a peaceful policy. It was not that the Rahu clan could not compete with the player clan. The players had seen the combat power of the Rahu clan with their own eyes. They had once crushed the forces of the land of the 9 luminaries, which had once wiped out the players, so they were not afraid of the players at all. Of course, that was only in the past. The combat power of the players now was far from what it used to be. Even if they were to fight against the land of Rahu, they would not be much weaker. Other than the top combat power, the players were almost all ghost commanders, so they were not afraid of becoming enemies with any forces. However, the Rahu clan had tolerated their provocations many times without retaliating. The players had also sensed the goodwill of the Rahu clan. Hence, the number of times the players went to the land of the 9 luminaries decreased. The war with the Corpse clan was not a problem of resources, but a problem of standpoint. The cause was the earth-shattering battle between the demonic god and Hitorigami. Half a year ago, the demonic god discovered that Hitorigami's soul fragment had gone missing. He angrily began to search for Hitorigami's soul. Along the way, he found the land of Sunluo. In the end, he met Hitorigami, who had just advanced to the peak of the demigod realm. Both of them seemed to be fated rivals. When enemies met, their eyes turned red and a battle broke out on the spot. Although Hitorigami had the combat power of the peak of the demigod realm, he was still no match for the demonic god. The battle lasted for half a day, and the huge commotion attracted the attention of many players. Many of them risked their lives to secretly take pictures of the battle and broadcast it on the forum. This battle was the scariest battle that the players had ever seen. The demonic god and Hitorigami seemed to have the power to destroy the earth. The players were thrilled to see it. Just when the players thought that the demonic god was going to smash the resurrected Hitorigami's head, something unexpected happened. The two emperors of the Corpse Clan, Chiba and Laiba, were thrown into Hitorigami's mouth and turned into his power. What the demonic god did not expect was that Hitorigami disappeared after that. He entered the Six Realms space and accepted the Great Emperor's pardon. He successfully advanced to the divine state and left his name on the underworld god list. Hitorigami, who had returned, had become extremely powerful. With the help of his sister, who had come into contact with the law of time and space, and the high-level generals of the Corpse Clan, they had the power to fight a fierce battle. The battle lasted for 5 days and 5 nights. Hitorigami and the demonic god were both severely injured and fell into a coma. At that time, the demonic god was in a very dangerous situation. In order to kill the demonic god while he was unconscious, Mei-Ba gathered all the Corpse Clan in the Sunluo region and climbed onto the demonic god's body. She wanted to devour and refine him while he was unconscious. However, the Corpse Clan did not expect that the natural disaster of the players would come at this time. The ones who initiated the demonic god protection plan were the youths of the demonic god guild, who were always ridiculed by the players. They were said to be a disgrace to the players. At that time, they posted crazily on the forum, calling for the players to protect the demonic god. After that, Guyu stood up and called for the players to protect the demonic god. He also stated that the demonic god would be their ally. Since the Myth Guild participated, the other major guilds naturally showed respect and joined the demonic god protection plan. Therefore, more players responded to the call and prepared to save the demonic god. The war between the Corpse Clan and the Player Clan broke out. Before the death battle between Hitorigami and the demonic god ended, the battle between the players and the Corpse Clan had already begun. In that battle, the players made the Corpse Clan understand that some corpses could not be retrieved. At that time, Mei-Ba and the high-level corpse generals were severely injured during the battle with the demonic god. They were unable to stop the players from saving the demonic god. It was also that battle that caused the players to completely become enemies with the Corpse Clan, the kind that would not rest until one of them died. Although the players felt that they would not die at all, laughing emoji. Chapter 571. However, the Corpse Clan understood that they could not retreat. They could only fight. Seeing this, Gongda immediately retaliated. Due to the demonic god and Hitorigami, the players and the Corpse Clan were on different sides, which led to the outbreak of war. The players earn a lot from the dead man's riches, and their overall strength improve a lot. Luwu was no exception. These evil Demon Chef players came up with a 108 Corpse Spirit Dark Cuisine set. Newbie, this is not a good place. What crime did you commit? Since it was activity time, after Gongda put down his daily necessities, he was escorted to the field by the prison guard. As they walked through a passageway, without cameras, the prison guard suddenly stopped and turned to look at Gongda. Gongda heard and shook his head again. As the escort vehicle drove in, the prisoners inside the barbed wire on both sides of the road looked at the rarely seen escort vehicle curiously. Different expressions appeared on their faces. We have the same skin color. You have no other choice but to join us. However, it's not easy to join me. You have to prove that you are useful to me. So, I'll give you a mission. If you can complete it, you'll join us. Its function was to collect evil corpse spirits and refine them into corpse spirit points. The players could use the corpse spirit points to cultivate single-use combat corpse spirits. This was the only way to kill the demonic god and destroy the player clan in Bakey. Is your gang lacking a boss? They even treated it as a spice in their boring lives. Ha ha! Hearing Gongda's reply, the group could not help but laugh. The leading black man was dizzy from the collision. He obviously did not expect Gongda to dare to resist him. Subsequently, many Demon Chef players also joined in the use of corpses. Because of the pay-to-win roulette this time, many impoverished players once again set their sights on the land of Sunluo. An escort vehicle drove over from afar, and the metal gate of Polesmore Prison slowly opened at this time. At this moment, Gongda suddenly threw the basketball at the man's face. Then, he grabbed the man's neck and pressed it down. His knee went straight for the man's face. From this moment onwards, he was officially a member of this prison with a life sentence. However, this was not a good place. This was because it housed the most vicious criminals in the Republic of South Africa. It was where Polesmore Prison was located. The field was as big as 2 football fields, and it was divided into 5 areas: B, C, D, and E. After finishing the cigarette, the escort got into the car, and the prison guard turned his attention to the black man. Not only was everyone in Area B stunned, but a newcomer had used such a method to defeat an entire regional gang with his powerful strength. After all, they had bought the bodies of these Corpse Clan warriors from the auction house, and they had spent soul coins on them. Moonshine. When Gongda heard this, he spoke with a calm expression. Then, under the escort of the prison guards, he moved forward step by step. Under the gazes of the prisoners on both sides of the barbed wire, he entered a building in front of him. At this moment, Gongda's performance attracted the attention of everyone in Zone B. The furious subordinates also attacked at this time. Therefore, they held a food-tasting event and provided the Corpse Spirit Cuisine set meal to the players for free. The grayish-white striped shirt was quickly torn in the fight, and his body was covered in wounds. However, Gongda was still full of fighting spirit. He roared like a beast, and every punch landed on flesh, knocking down one attacker after another. The smile on the man's face deepened. He took a step forward and patted Gongda's shoulder. However, those who could enter this place were not easy to deal with. They had all been stripped of their political rights and were basically either life sentences or death sentences. Although most of the players were indifferent to this and had no intention of trying it out, there was no need to worry that no one would buy good things. Some rich players had even announced that they would save up a large number of corpse spirit points and create a Ghost King combat corpse spirit in one go. After all, the Demon Chef player's ability was to process the taste of food and remove all harmful substances. Even sh*T could be made delicious. They had wanted to use the corpses of the player clan to create a corpse mountain, and then expand their advantage to slowly nibble away at the player's power. However, they did not expect that not only would they not be able to collect the corpses, but the corpses of their clansmen would also be collected by the players. Breathing heavily, Gongda took off the torn clothes on his body, revealing his explosive muscles and the 3-headed black snake tattoo on his chest. Seeing this, Gongda laughed out loud. Looking at the greed on the prison guard's face, Gongda shook his head. On the other hand, the players were in a very good mood, because these corpses could be sold for a good price. They could sell them to the rich players, to the Demon Chef players, and so on. In any previous battles, the Corpse Clan was already used to collecting the corpses of their enemies and then refining them into a part of the Corpse Mountain, using war to nurture war, and relying on war to strengthen the clan's strength. There were even many corpses of Corpse Clan warriors that were put up for auction. The stronger the Corpse Clan warrior before death, the higher the price of soul coins sold. As soon as he said this, the lackeys behind him roared with laughter again. But after all, these food could provide real buffs and even permanent attribute points. However, the Demon Chef players were not satisfied with this. After all, if they made it and there were no sales, their losses would be very huge. But this time in the war against the Corpse Clan, this building was once again put to use. After that, Gongda went through a series of physical examinations and met the prison warden. All the information handed over was recorded in the database. You'll regret it. Realizing that Gongda was so insensible, the prison guard's face darkened. So in this battle, the Corpse Clan had already fallen into a passive position. In less than 10 minutes, he knocked everyone from the Beast Clan to the ground. Hearing this, Gongda did not speak. This also formed an industrial chain. For the Demon Chef players, they only saw the abundant spiritual energy points in the bodies of the Corpse Clan warriors. This was like food that contained rich protein in reality. Its nutritional value was very high. Since there was a huge consumer group, then what was lacking was the bodies of the Corpse Clan warriors. Now, they could only hope that Hitorigami would wake up soon. Instantly, cheers sounded from within the barbed wire, as if to welcome the arrival of this newcomer. Seeing this, Gongda walked towards him with large strides. "I don't have money." Looking at the gang leader struggling on the ground, Gongda suddenly turned to look at the prison guard on the other side of the metal door. A sinister smile appeared on his face. "Yes." At this time, the prison guard helped him remove the handcuffs and leg cuffs and pushed him into the field. And the most popular way for civilian players to carry bricks had changed from fishing to moving corpses. Hearing this, Gongda nodded. And the richer the spiritual energy points in the ingredients, the higher the quality of the food, and the stronger the amplification effect. Facing this group of people's mockery, Gongda's face was cold. And the reason why the players collected the corpses of the Corpse Clan warriors was also very simple. It was because the corpses of the Corpse Clan were very useful to them. Seeming to realize that his behavior was embarrassing, the prison guard hurriedly took another step forward with an angry expression. The demand could be said to be very high. After a moment of contemplation, he glared at Gongda with slight reluctance, then led him through 2 checkpoints and entered the 707 room he was in. Other than that, there were many players who were trying to develop other ways to use the bodies of the Corpse Clan warriors, also wanting to join the ranks of earning soul coins. Not only did they not gain the slightest advantage from the players, but their overall strength was constantly being weakened. Not far from Gongda, the leader, a bald man with a scar on his face, waved at Gongda. In that blurry memory, he felt that he still had a name. The consequences of offending the prison guard was incomparably tragic, and so this industrial chain also began to operate. However, the enmity between the player clan and the Corpse Clan was completely formed. Bang! Blood splattered. The arrival of the escort vehicle meant that a new prisoner was about to join their large group. The leader pointed at himself, then at his underling behind him. He could not help but laugh. "You don't have money?" According to the information, you robbed a vault, and the gold has not been recovered until now. The greed on the prison guard's face surfaced again. Their numb life made them different from ordinary people. They were very happy to see others in pain, and they took pleasure in it. It could be said that they were the complete opposite. His fierce gaze scared the prison guard so much that he subconsciously took a step back. "Don't you know the rules here?" The prison guard frowned slightly. Looking at the black man's mocking expression, Gongda also laughed. He reached out and took the basketball. The Corpse Clan warrior who discovered this could be said to have an extremely complicated and gloomy mood. They suffered heavy casualties in the battle, but after the 3-hour cooldown period, they decisively threw themselves into the battle again. Only then did they manage to drag the huge body of the demonic god back to the Arctic abyss, which was also the land of Baki. "Hey, newbie, come here." There was an ancient building in the Mansion of the Dead. The earliest Battle League players were very familiar with this building. It was the Corpse Refinery. P.S. Chapter 140 can be found in more details. In order to save the demonic god, the players spent a lot of energy. As the door opened, a burly, dark-skinned man who was about 1.9 meters tall slowly walked out of the prison van. He was wearing handcuffs and shackles. Therefore, eating the corpse spirit cooking set became an event that only brave warriors dared to challenge. Although he was fighting against dozens of people, Gongda did not panic at all. Over the past 6 months, the players gradually strengthened their own forces by using the Corpse Clan's method of plundering the forces of other clans. They also made full use of corpses. The players could throw the corpses of the Corpse Clan warriors into it and refine them into corpse spirit points, which could be used for one-time use as combat corpse spirits. Among them, the happiest one was Lu Wu. Although they knew that it was delicious, most of the players still felt disgusted and did not dare to try it. Even the foodie players who wanted to eat all the delicacies in the game did not dare to challenge these unconventional delicacies. South Africa. Hearing this, Gongda shook his head again. His expression did not change at all. The dark cage and the dense barbed wire were imprisoning free souls. Here, no one could have freedom. What? The leading black man looked very surprised. As he spoke, the prison guard closed the metal gate of the field. Let me ask you again. Do you guys like a boss? The players who had run out of money only had one thought at this moment. It was time for them to carry bricks again. As long as no lives were lost, they would not bother. The black man was not angry and continued to speak. Seeing Gongda's arrival, the group of prisoners who were exercising on the field quickly gathered and walked toward Gongda. I didn't commit a crime. Just as the Baiki players were in full swing with the corpse clan of the land of Sinluo. It was as if he was once the king of a world in a distant period of time. It's very simple. Take this, find someone there, and throw it at his face. Remember, throw it with all your might. As he spoke, the leading black man took the basketball from his underling and pointed at the white people who were sitting in a circle not far away. If we can't jump out, we can still do it in 3 hours. Hence, there was a small group of players who bit the bullet and tried it. If they were punched, they would hit back. If they were kicked, they would kick back. What mission? Gongda asked. At this moment, the group of people walking toward Gongda was led by a black man with a scar on his face. Beside him, most of the people were black as well. There were more than 20 of them. During this period, the two godly state strongmen, the demonic god and Hitorigami, were both unconscious. At this moment, Gongda was in Zone B. I advise you to think about it carefully. Once you've made up your mind, you can look for me anytime. If the demonic god woke up first, their doomsday would come. Now, even if the Corpse Clan did not want to start a war, the players would not agree to it. This building was a special structure built during the invasion of the evil calamity. However, compared to the players, the Corpse Clan was getting more and more depressed in this battle. After panting for a moment, he slowly straightened his body and stepped on the head of the black man who had provoked him just now. As he spoke, the man turned his head and pointed at a group of white people who were also sitting together in Zone B. In a desert area far away from the city, under the endless yellow sand, there was an oasis. The prison guard who saw this was the same. No one here is guilty. We are all innocent, just like you. No one could stop him. So what if Hitorigami woke up first? The players only wanted to say, why don't you King jump out of the game world and beat me up? In Area B, there are a total of 2 gangs. One is the wild beast that I'm in, and the other is the poison of the white pigs. If you don't choose a gang to join, then your days here will be miserable. Whether the food was delicious or not was not a problem for the Demon Chef players. Some came in groups, some came in guild groups, and there were also groups of solo players. The Corpse Clan, who had not even had 2 days of peace, once again faced the evil forces of the players that gave them a huge headache. There was joy, mockery, and numbness after a series of procedures. The prison guard brought Gongda to his cell, room 707. This scene did not make Gongda nervous. He continued to stand where he was quietly. Is there anything else? Gongda heard this, but there was no change in his expression. He looked at the field. Fortunately, Meiba and the corpse generals were all seriously injured in the battle to help Hitorigami stop the demonic god. They were unable to stop the arrival of the players, which allowed the players to successfully take the demonic god away. This was how the prisoners welcomed the newcomers. It had always been like this, and they were already used to it. At this moment, the prison guard came forward and greeted the escorts. He handed them a cigarette and started chatting with them. Is there anything you want to say to me? This was because the players had to pay a handling fee for using the corpse refining room. The players also had to pay a handling fee for buying and selling corpses in the auction house. In short, Lu Wu was the one who made the most out of the battle between the player clan and the corpse clan. How about this? Share some with me. I promise you will have a good life here in the future. You have to understand what kind of place this is. Without my protection, a newcomer like you will have a terrible ending." After that, the Corpse Clan attacked Bakey several times. The players did not show any mercy and attacked the land of Sunluo several times. This name had no meaning, but it had the unwillingness to live under someone else's roof. The burly black man wearing handcuffs and leg cuffs stood at the side. His expression was normal, not happy or sad. However, their faces were filled with schadenfreude. When the prison guard outside the barbed wire saw this scene, he turned a blind eye to it. He had no intention of stopping them at all. In fact, he even looked forward to it. However, the non-Western server had ushered in a huge revolution. The result was that it was delicious. As a prison guard in this desert area, one of their daily income came from the prisoners. "You're Gongda, right? Let's go and register. This will be your home from now on." As he spoke, a mocking smile appeared on the prison guard's face. The players could go to the land of Sunluo and kill a few Corpse Clan warriors, which they could sell for a lot of soul coins. It seemed like an illusion, but it felt so real. Although there were not many customers, at least there were customers and they could make money. However, he did not want to be tied down here. Before he got what he wanted to be the king of this place. However, with the end of the evil calamity, this building was gradually abandoned in the city, and no one paid attention to it. However, when faced with the gangster forces of the players, not even a strand of hair would be left behind, not to mention corpses. Most of the prisoners who wanted to live a good life would choose to bribe the prison guards. This was because the prison guards had great power here. Chapter 572. These celestial realm gods all felt an inexplicable force constantly absorbing their divine power, but they could not find out where this force came from. Although he had all of this person's memories, he felt that his name should be Yu Yao, not Gongda. It was to let the newcomers understand the rules here, to know who was in charge, to be honest and obedient. In reality, the heavenly mystic deity Lord had always been investigating the underworld and human realm and secretly plotting to stop the development of the two realms. But before that, he had to establish a strong reputation. At this time, in the artifact space, at the sound of the alarm, the emergency team with explosive shields quickly rushed over, and as the metal door opened, they rushed into the field in Area B. This was Mu Guang, who had taken over Black Tiger's body and had his memories blocked. All of this was arranged by the heavenly mystic deity Lord. But in his coma, a blurry image appeared in Gongda's mind. But this was not the end. Gongda knew that the power in Area B alone was not enough to complete his prison break plan. He needed more helpers. Foreseeing danger for the celestial realm and dealing with it was his duty. Thus, his gaze turned from the underworld to the human realm. Then, he felt that his disintegrated self was being reformed. But the laws of the three realms clearly stated that celestial realm gods could not descend to the human realm. And there was another reason for choosing Africa. He did this so that he wouldn't be caught red-handed. It was all for the sake of caution. Everyone in this prison knew that there was a guy in Area B that they could not afford to offend. "Stop! Stop! Do you hear me?" At this time, a golden figure appeared. But the heavenly mystic deity, Lord, did not give up. It was time to complete that vague mission. He felt that if this went on, he would really be beaten to death. Sweat flowed down his forehead, and his steel-like body shimmered under the light. He looked like a god of war, and he seemed to vaguely remember that he was once the king of a world, but there was no memory of this, because if he said this, the prestige he had built up in front of his subordinates would be gone, and no one would be willing to follow him in the future. At this moment, the leader of the Beast Gang, who was used to being domineering in Area B, had a mental breakdown. It was a hazy place. In that area, his body was broken down bit by bit, turning into scattered pieces that slowly melted into the world. Looking at Gongda, the people who had been knocked to the ground fell silent, not daring to continue resisting. Gongda was lost amidst the chaos, but he knew that he had to leave as soon as possible. This time, no one dared to provoke Gongda, because they all knew that he was not to be trifled with. After so many years, their bodies might no longer be here, but the heavenly mystic immortal lord still decided to start his investigation from here. It was then that he snuck into the 6 paths of reincarnation. But he still felt that he was Yu Yao. The rules of survival in prison were different from those in the outside world. Those with bigger fists were stronger, and they were easily feared and respected. After Yu Yao's death, Lu Wu tried to recruit him, but Yu Yao refused. Although Lu Wu felt it was a pity, he did not force him to stay. After that, Bailey erased the memory of Lu Wu and herself from Yu Yao's consciousness and watched him step into the 6 paths of reincarnation with her own eyes. A little blood would make people remember him better, and fear would deepen the impression, so he showed no mercy. The guard on duty on the lookout immediately aimed his gun at Gongda. Therefore, Gongda felt that he was not himself, but Yu Yao. Moreover, there was always a strong desire to complete the mission in his mind, but he did not know what he should do. He just wanted to get out as soon as possible. He thought that he could hide from the detection of the Emperor of the Underworld, but he could not escape from Lil Bailey, who could control the 6 paths of reincarnation at any time. When he woke up again, he realized that he had become a different person. As for why he took Yu Yao's fragment, Lil Bailey knew better. This power would slowly transform this person's body, constantly strengthening his body. After that, Lu Wu was transferred back to number 2. Faced with Gongda's provocation, the criminals in the 5 districts began to fight openly and covertly. Some of the leaders with influence outside even bribed the prison guards to suppress Gongda. Although the Treaty of the 3 Realms mainly restricted the underworld and the human world, he had to look good on the surface. However, they did not provoke him, but Gongda took the initiative to find the leader of the Beast Gang. It was already nighttime. However, Gongda did not have the slightest intention of stopping. Seeing this, the prison guards quickly pressed the alarm. In a city in South Africa, Mu Zhiguang's figure appeared. However, what he did not know was that a certain boss behind the scenes had already discovered his existence. After becoming the boss of the Beast Gang, the first thing Gongda did was to provoke the leader of another gang in District B. Obviously, Gongda was a new monkey who broke the rules. However, the difference was that he beat up the old monkey. The prison guards and the warden wanted to see an obedient monkey, not a monkey who broke the rules like Gongda. This was because this kind of guy was full of uncertainty and could cause even more trouble at any time. Dong Wang Tai even personally investigated for this, but it was to no avail. At this time, Gongda was already unconscious. He was carried into the treatment room by the medical staff for examination. Relying on the memory that Gongda left behind, he thought of a way to get out, which was to become the well-deserved king of this prison, then start a riot and escape in the chaos. At this time, if a new monkey was placed in the cage and it did not know this rule, it would want to touch the banana. Therefore, faced with the provocation of the leader of the Beast Gang, he did not hesitate to attack. This person sat cross-legged in a colorful mist, surrounded by divine aura. The dissipating golden light pushed the hazy mist away and stood in front of him. Then, he would punish the guy named Gongda and torture him to death. They quickly surrounded Gongda, their batons swinging down like raindrops. Actually, the immortal had taken away Yu Yao's soul in the 6 paths of reincarnation, but none of this escaped Lil Bailey's notice. In the end, the prison doctors quickly arrived and carried all the injured out of the field in District B. This cruel law of survival, mutual deception, was what the immortal wanted to see. Bang, bang, bang. However, they were naturally unwilling to be in the same team as the black people of the Beast Gang. This was a rule set by the Emperor of the Underworld and the Emperor of the Heaven Realm, and he could not break it. The information about Yu Yao being assassinated by the player clan was even more useless. Due to his identity, he could not personally go to the underworld, but at that time, he found a chess piece, and that was Songshu. He used the fact that Songshu wanted to save the immortals as leverage to get Songshu to continuously provide information about the underworld and investigate if there were any rebellious intentions in the underworld. Therefore, he set his sights on the gangs in the other districts. This mission was very vague. It seemed to be to find something important, but he was not sure how to do it. He only knew that he had to get out as soon as possible, and only then could he start this mission. If he did not stop Gongda, he was afraid that someone would die. During this period of time in the heaven realm, there were actually a few gods who had abnormal physical conditions. According to Dongwang Tai, it was very likely that the damage caused by the negative body formed by these incomplete parts was caused to the original body. After taking away Yu Yao's soul, he carefully checked Yu Yao's memory to see if there were any traces of the North Sea and the others when this short-lived His Excellency was in office. However, he gave up after the investigation was fruitless. He locked a few monkeys in an iron cage and hung a rope inside the cage with a banana hanging at the bottom. If any monkey touched the banana out of hunger, all the monkeys in the cage would be beaten by the experimenters. Gongda's arrival brought many unstable factors to the already chaotic prison. However, with the absolute difference in strength, not only did he fail, but he was also beaten up. Although they were all vicious criminals, it did not mean that they were not afraid of death. Facing Gongda, whose strength was much higher than theirs, their hearts were filled with grievance and fear, and they did not dare to make the first move. Therefore, he thought of looking for an agent like Sangshu to investigate the details of the remains of the gods in the human world. Fortunately, Yu Yao's memory of Bei Li and Lu Wu had been erased, and he did not know the North Sea, so the heavenly mystic deity could not find any useful information. The man clenched his teeth and did not speak. Therefore, he found a human with a strong body to possess and injected Yu Yao's soul into it. Then, he injected a trace of divine power. To be the boss in the prison, apart from strength, prestige was also very important. Lil Bei Li was very clear about the identity of this deity. However, what the heavenly mystic deity did not know was that all his plans were completely exposed to Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li. Back then, in order to eliminate the human world force, the ancestral leopard bloodline, there was a war between the heaven realm and the human realm. The remains of the sky-devouring lion, the spiritual mantis, and the elephant god had fallen here. It was after the North Sea had slaughtered the gods in the land of Baiki. The blurry memories, the strong sense of mission, all of this confused Gongda. However, facing the fully armed prison guards, Gongda, who had used up most of his strength, could no longer resist. He was smashed to the ground and fell unconscious after a while. What he needed was someone who broke the rules. Choosing those big shots might be smooth in the early stages, but the abnormality of the big shots would cause a chain reaction. The impact would be too great, and the risk of exposure would be very high. Even the two leaders in Block B took the initiative to bribe the prison guards in the confinement room, asking them to pass on Gongda's instructions. During this period, there would always be monkeys who could not help but want to touch the bananas, but without exception, all the monkeys would get beaten up. Everything was progressing in an orderly manner, and Gongda felt that the day of his prison break was not far away. Just like Sangshu back then, he was just a brand new chess piece. Facing such a barbaric Gongda already made the other gang feel very uneasy, and when they faced him head-on, their momentum weakened. A day later, Gongda, who woke up in the infirmary, was severely punished. He was locked in a confinement room for a week and was only given one meal a day. Beep, beep, beep. Previously, it was only him who bullied others, and this was the first time he was bullied like this. Because of this, he thought of revenge, and even sharpened the handle of his toothbrush, preparing to give Gongda a harsh blow to let him know that he was not to be trifled with. Because of this, the mission he injected into Gongda's mind was also blurry, and would only become clearer as time passed. His idea was very simple. Since these deities with abnormal bodies left their missing body parts in the human world, then he would find these missing body parts and investigate the specific reason. A week later, Gongda, who had come out of the confinement room, once again came to the field in Block B. Someone had once studied the content of this. Previously, all the newcomers who came were obedient, and it was normal for them to be beaten up. Moreover, Gongda was a criminal to begin with, so it would seem very normal for him to go overboard. This law was the same in this prison. However, even though he was once again locked in the confinement room, he could still command the criminals in Block B with his powerful prestige. However, not only did Gangda not compromise, he even swung his fists to counterattack. The bronze divine tree, the elephant god, the heaven-devouring lion, the cloud-soaring dragon, the moon god, the spirit bug, and so on. This immortal lord had also done something before, and it was also him that caused Sangshu's heaven-defying plan to start. However, Gangda did not back down at all. As long as he was out of the confinement room, everything would be the same as before. However, apart from this name, he had no memory of Yu Yao. In the end, the monkeys all behaved themselves, understanding that touching a banana would result in a beating. This immortal lord could not sit still when faced with this hidden danger of the heaven-defying alliance. After using Sangshu and confirming that the current underworld could not give birth to a force like the heaven-defying alliance, he kicked Sangshu away without hesitation. However, the remaining people in the field in Block B were still in a state of shock. Clearly, this newcomer's domineering entrance had left them in disbelief. Because of this, the heavenly mystic immortal lord who had received the news began to investigate the matter. When newcomers arrived, they usually did not understand the rules here, so the old people would choose to use violent means to educate them. However, with the extremely powerful Gangda's iron fist, Block B was unified in the end. From then on, there was only one boss in Block B, and that was Gangda. Although the great emperor could use the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation, he was not the ruler of the 6 paths of reincarnation, so he was very confident in sneaking in this time. As expected, Gangda was locked in the confinement room once again. Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li were observing Gangda's every move through the artifact. Committing a crime, go to prison. Robbery, gang crime. Everything felt very unfamiliar to him. Now I'll ask you again, who's the boss? Gangda asked the man under his foot with a sinister smile. Seeing this, Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li discussed for a while and decided to punish him. In the end, he found a clue, and that was that these gods were heavily injured in the Battle of the 3 Realms and left behind parts of their bodies in the human world. It was after that that the immortal appeared. Gangda's performance shocked everyone in Block B. Seeing that there was no reply, Gangda raised his foot with a sinister smile and then stomped hard on the man's face. Every newcomer who arrived had to be beaten up. This was also one of the rules here, and it was not just simple humiliation. The leader of the Beast Gang, who still refused to lower his head, was beaten up by Gangda again, and his bruised face was licked with new wounds. He even personally met the immortal Emperor Dong Wang and asked for guidance. However, the method of punishment naturally could not be exposed, and they could not show up in person. This was a lesson for the troublemaker like him. Such a stubborn Gangda also gave the prison guards a huge headache. Because of this, they fiercely threatened Gangda and even used underhanded methods to beat Gangda up. What they faced was endless interrogation and investigation. However, something happened later that made the heavenly mystic deity monarch vigilant again. On the 4th time, the leader of the Beast Gang finally could not take it anymore and chose to lower his head, recognizing Gangda as the boss. He became a thorn in the side of the prison guards and the warden, but Gangda's prestige was established in this prison. Therefore, he wanted to investigate the memory of Yu Yao, the short-lived His Excellency of Beiki, to see if he knew anything about the North Sea, Frozen, and the other descendants of the heaven-defying alliance. He only modified the strength of his body to the limit of the human body, and then sent him to South Africa. However, before completing this mission, he had to do one thing. After that, he used the artifact to extract all the soul energy in his body, but modified his body with the goal of making him look like a normal human. At this time, he suddenly remembered that he still had Yu Yao's soul fragment, which could be used at this time. The heavenly mystic deity monarch, a person who had experienced the war of the 3 realms, had the same status as the bronze god tree, and was second only to the immortal emperor of the heaven realm. Therefore, the balance between the 2 gangs was broken, and Block B became extremely chaotic, with fights happening every day. At this moment, the prison guard watching from behind the iron gate could not sit still anymore, and immediately took out his baton and started hitting the iron gate. After closing his eyes to check the mission that Lu Wu sent through the artifact, Mu Zhiguang's lips curled up. There was another reason why he chose Gongda as the target of possession, other than this person's extremely strong body. Who's the boss? At this time, there was no need for the experimenter to stop him. The monkeys in the cage would beat up this new monkey who wanted to break the rules first. However, the appearance of the descendant of the heaven-defying alliance, North Sea, made the heavenly mystic deity monarch feel uneasy again, so he decided to observe the underworld again. However, when he came out again, Gongda was still the same. He came to the field and asked the leader of the beast gang who was the boss. It was simple and clear: fight if you're not satisfied. Other than that, he still had a very urgent mission to complete. Chapter 573. Polesmore Prison. On this day, the prison cart escorting the prisoners arrived again. Just like before, the prisoners inside the barbed wire were all looking forward to the arrival of the newcomers, waiting for the show to begin. This time, there were two prisoners who came down from the cart. One was a middle-aged man in his 40s who looked very timid. His eyes were fixed on the ground, and he didn't dare look around. The other person, however, piqued the curiosity of all the prisoners. From his skin color and appearance, it could be seen that he was Asian. He was about 1.8 meters tall, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, and his gaze was very spirited. Unlike the old man, his gaze constantly swept across the prisoners inside the barbed wire on both sides. Even when he met those vicious gazes, he didn't avoid them at all, and his entire body exuded confidence. After confirming the two's identities, the prison guard brought them to the office and began the registration process. But during the registration, what made the prison guard curious was that one of them was actually a stowaway. As for where he came from, he didn't say, but the crimes he committed were very ridiculous. He actually used a toy gun to rob a bank, and he even succeeded. What made the prison guard even more speechless was that after the robbery, this guy took the huge sum of money and sat in front of the bank smoking, as if he wanted to be caught. After he was caught, this guy's attitude became even more inexplicable. No matter how they asked, he wouldn't say anything. Left with no choice, the police could only conduct a psychiatric evaluation, but the conclusion was that he was completely normal and had no mental problems. Finally, according to the Republic of South Africa's laws, because his circumstances were very bad and he was extremely uncooperative, he was sentenced to Polesmore Prison. From the prison guard point of view, this guy called Mu Zhiguang was really showing off. This criminal file was really showing off to the point of numbness in the prison guard's scalp. Looking at this guy, he was still full of confidence even in prison. It was enough to make the prison guard speechless. Really showing off. According to the procedure, after a body check and meeting with the warden, the two newcomers were taken away and sent to the restricted areas of A and C. Mu Zhiguang was assigned to C, which was separated from B by a barbed wire fence. There were also two gangs in Area C, the Snake Gang and the Eagle Gang. But recently, these two originally opposing gangs united for the first time in history. The reason was that B, which was already under Gongda's control, faced with Gongda's suppression, they had no choice but to cooperate. Seeing Mu Zhiguang enter the field, the prisoners who were exercising immediately turned to look at him. When a newcomer arrived, there was naturally a need to set up rules to let the newcomer understand some simple principles. They gathered together and walked towards Mu Zhiguang. This time, there weren't many twists and turns. They just wanted to beat up the rookie. The prison guard stood behind the iron gate, turning a blind eye to all of this. At this moment, Mu Zhiguang smiled when he saw the aggressive crowd. He turned his head and looked in the direction of Zone B. Then he walked toward the crowd in front of him and took the initiative to attack. Unlike Gongda back then, Mu Zhiguang's attacks were not as vicious, but every move he made was extremely effective, quickly subduing his enemies. Basically, no one present could withstand a single blow from him. At this moment, Mu Zhiguang was performing the art of grappling ultimate version that Lu Wu had implanted in him, copied from a Beiki expert. Mu Zhiguang was always able to defeat his enemies with one strike by exploiting the weaknesses of the human body's joints, acupuncture points, and vital parts. In a short period of time, he had defeated more than 10 people. At this moment, the prisoners in Zone C were also dumbfounded. When Gongda appeared in Zone B, it was already unbelievable. Now, there was another one, and he didn't seem to be any weaker than Gongda. However, facing a newcomer, these old men with a sense of superiority were unwilling to bow their heads. They immediately swarmed forward. Although Mu Zhiguang's soul power was drained by Lu Wu, he still retained his fighting skills. Facing the prisoner's fierce attack, he did not panic at all. He calmly fought back, and at the same time, he dodged to prevent himself from being pushed to the ground. Even though he had the physique of a human body's limit, Mu Zhiguang knew that if he was pushed to the ground by so many prisoners, it would be difficult for him to get up again. Relying on his superior skills and physique, Mu Zhiguang fought against 50 people alone. Apart from the prisoners who did not join gangs and were bullied all day long, the gang members who had gathered were all knocked to the ground in a short period of time. However, unlike Gongda, Mu Zhiguang did not chase after all of them after defeating them. Instead, he smiled and said, "Let's have a discussion. How about I be the boss of Zone C?" Lying on the ground, the prisoners who were wailing because their weak points were hit were dumbfounded when they heard this. This scene was so familiar. Just a while ago, they had witnessed the same situation in Area B next door. At that time, they treated it as a joke, and they could not help but laugh at it. They did not expect to be defeated in the same place. However, the people here were all villains. How could they surrender so easily? Even if they could not win, they had to hold on. However, unlike Gongda, Mu Zhiguang did not kill them to set an example to others to establish his authority. Instead, he turned around and found a place to sit down. He looked at them lying on the ground with a smile on his face. The prisoners were dumbfounded. They had no idea what Mu Zhiguang was going to do. However, Mu Zhiguang was very clear about what he was going to do. He was going to kill Gongda and complete Lu Wu's task. At the same time, he was going to set up a trap for the heavenly mystic deity behind the scenes. It did not matter to him whether he wanted to be the boss or not. However, for the next few days, no one in Zone C dared to provoke Mu Zhiguang. After that fight, Mu Zhiguang had made his name known. But soon, trouble came knocking on his door. This trouble was not directed at Mu Zhiguang, but the entire Zone C. During lunch in the cafeteria, the prisoners in Zone A and B took the initiative to provoke Gongda. There was only one goal, to make everyone in Zone C recognize Gongda as their boss. Of course, the prisoners in Zone C were not happy about this. Thus, two groups of people started fighting during lunchtime. Food flew everywhere, and the ground was filled with scuffling figures. After this fight, Zone A and Zone B did not gain much of an advantage. Although Zone C was weaker than the combined forces of Zone A and B, Mu Zhiguang made his move in the end. However, in the end, Mu Zhiguang made his move and successfully defeated the prisoners in Area A and B before the prison emergency squad arrived. However, after this, the two bosses in Zone C looked very worried. Since Gongda had been locked up in the detention room for the past few days, he did not participate in this group fight. Therefore, they were very worried about how Gongda would deal with them when he came out. The prisoners in Zone C were still very afraid of Gongda, who could single-handedly defeat Zone B and make the prisoners in Zone A submit in a short period of time. Therefore, they were worried that when that madman Gongda came out, he would personally lead the prisoners in Zone A and B to beat them up. At this moment, they thought of Mu Zhiguang. It seemed that in the entire Zone C, only Mu Zhiguang had the power to fight against Gongda. After some hesitation and mental struggle, the two bosses in Zone C found Mu Zhiguang, hoping that he would be the boss of Zone C and lead his brothers to fight against Gongda. In this prison where they had lost their freedom, for these bosses, face was actually very important. Although they would all recognize someone else as their boss, at the very least, Mu Zhiguang was one of them in Zone C. This was not a shameful thing to say. Mu Zhiguang did not refuse and agreed decisively, because he only had one goal, and that was to wait for Gongda to come out of the detention room and then punish him. The days passed one by one. While waiting, the vicious Gongda was finally released from the confinement room. As usual, The first thing Gangda did when he came out was to stir up trouble. It was still lunchtime, and after eating a few mouthfuls of food, Gangda suddenly stood up. Seeing this, the two prison guards already knew what was going to happen. Their hands were already on the alarm, ready to press it at any time. Seeing Gangda stand up, the lackeys around him also stood up and followed Gangda step by step toward the prisoners who were eating in Zone C. Seeing this, Mu Zhiguang smiled. After some thought, he also stood up. Seeing their boss stand up, although the prisoners in Zone C were timid, they still mustered up their courage to fight. At this moment, Gangda walked in front of Mu Zhiguang and looked at him with indifferent eyes. I heard that the boss of Zone C has changed. Is it you? Mu Zhiguang nodded nonchalantly. Is there a problem? Recognize me as your boss and listen to me in the future. Is there a problem? Gangda asked in a low voice. How about this? You fight me. If you can beat me, I'll listen to you. Mu Zhiguang seemed very relaxed and not nervous at all. Hearing Mu Zhiguang's answer, Gangda was very surprised. However, he had absolute confidence in such a challenge, so he nodded. The scene of the two dueling instantly attracted the attention of all the prisoners in the cafeteria. The two bosses in Zone B, who had followed Gangda since the beginning, walked towards the prison guards and told them about the duel. They also expressed that they didn't want to press the alarm and that it was just a duel. Nothing would happen. These two prison guards usually received a lot of benefits. Hearing that it was not a group fight and only a duel, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. Soon, the prisoners formed a large circle, and Mu Zhiguang and Gangda stood in the circle. It was not common for a duel to happen in a prison. Instead, the chances of a group fight were higher, so the surrounding prisoners all seemed a little excited. Some of the prisoners even raised their bowls and chopsticks and began to beat rhythmically. A duel in a prison seemed to be filled with a sense of ceremony, but it also seemed simple and crude. Defeating the opponent with brute force was enough, and there were no rules at the same time. Even things like chairs that were randomly grabbed during the fight could be used as weapons as long as they could knock the opponent down. Come, I'll let you attack first. Gangda sneered and provoked. Hearing this, Mu Zhiguang did not act humble. He decisively took a step forward and punched straight at Gangda's face. The moment the wind from the punch came, Gangda understood that the person in front of him was not easy to deal with. He immediately raised his hand to block. Seeing this, Mu Zhiguang took a step forward with his right foot and added some force to the punch. It smashed into Gangda's elbow and pushed him back a few steps. At this moment, Gangda's expression froze. He was shocked by Mu Zhiguang's strength. But before he could recover, Mu Zhiguang's attacks came at him continuously. The moment they clashed, Gangda fell into a passive position. The prisoners around him were all dumbfounded. In reality, they all thought that Gangda would win. Some of them even secretly opened a betting stand and bet on their private stash of tobacco. They did not expect Mu Zhiguang's strength to exceed their imaginations. Bang! With a dull sound, Gangda's chest was punched. He fell back and crashed into the dining table. What move? Gangda, who was slowly crawling up from the ground, asked with a dark expression. Divide, fix, inch, flood fist. Mu Zhiguang smiled. Again. This time, Gangda took the initiative to pounce on Mu Zhiguang. But in the face of Mu Zhiguang's crushing technique, Gangda's brute strength was very strenuous. While the two of them were exchanging blows, two pairs of eyes were watching them from the unseen world. One was naturally Lu Wu, observing through the artifact without leaving a trace. The other was the heavenly mystic deity. Seeing Gangda being restrained, the heavenly mystic deity in the Heavenly Strategies Bureau in the heaven frowned and kept glancing at Mu Zhiguang. But after careful inspection, he realized that there was not a trace of spiritual power in Mu Zhiguang's body. He could conclude that Mu Zhiguang was just an ordinary physical cultivator in reality. This made the heavenly mystic deity extremely frustrated. He had put Gangda in an important position and was prepared to slowly cultivate him into an important pawn in the human world. He did not expect to be restrained in this prison. But due to the restrictions of the Three Realms Treaty, as an enlightened master, he could not descend to the human world. Previously, he could only put the modified Yu Yao's soul into Gongda's body through a method of reincarnation. He did not descend to the human world himself. At this moment, he was extremely anxious. Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li were very happy. They had even set up a trap for this deity. Chapter 574. Heaven Realm, Heavenly Strategies Bureau. It was a very special department in the Heaven Realm. It was established after the Great War of the Three Realms with the purpose of inspecting the underworld and the human world to prevent any crisis. Although the Heaven Realm was already the strongest force in the Three Realms, they were still worried about the rise of the two realms below. The duty of the Heavenly Strategies Bureau was to eliminate all signs of crisis and control the direction of the situation while secretly inspecting. The Heavenly Mystic Deity King was also known as the Honorable Heavenly Strategies, the highest leader of the Heavenly Strategies Bureau. After being granted amnesty by the Immortal Emperor, he had been secretly plotting many plans. Since the human world was already in the degenerate age, there was no source of spiritual energy, so his focus was basically on the underworld. He constantly investigated for news, looking for the remnants of the heaven-defying alliance, and curbing the development of the underworld forces. Sangxu was just a pawn in his plan. After many investigations, the Heavenly Mystic Deity King realized that the underworld no longer had the strong desire for revenge like when the heaven-defying alliance was in the past. The forces of the underworld were attacking each other and plundering resources, which was no longer a problem. Therefore, the Heavenly Mystic Deity King felt that the underworld had no hope of rising again. So he kicked Sangxu away and handed the task of inspecting the underworld to the members of the Heavenly Strategies Bureau. But recently, the underworld was no longer peaceful. After Bei Ming killed a god, Luo Xiao killed another one. What surprised him even more was the appearance of the Ice Ghost Legion from the old era of the Heaven-Defying Alliance. All of this gave him a bad feeling. Therefore, he began to inspect the situation of the underworld, focusing most of his attention on Beiki. This was because many recent problems revolved around the headquarters of the Heaven-Defying Alliance, Beiki. However, he did not find any problems in Beiki during the inspection. Although there were many new forces, it was normal. Moreover, the strongest of these forces had not even reached the Ghost Emperor level, let alone establishing an organization like the Heaven-Defying Alliance. Therefore, he was relieved once again. He thought that all the crisis came from the remnants of the Heaven-Defying Alliance, so it was not a problem. As long as these remnants were all wiped out, the underworld would still be the one that he could rest assured of. But soon, the Heavenly Mystic Deity King discovered another big problem. That was the problem of the gods being robbed of their power, and the source could not be found at all, even if the Immortal Emperor was involved. This gave the Heavenly Mystic Immortal Lord a bad feeling. Thus, he was prepared to set up a puppet in the human world, a chess piece that would help him find out information and eliminate the danger. The most important thing was to find the remnant body of the deity whose power had been plundered and left in the human world. Logically speaking, everything was flawless. After all, he had never descended to the lower realm, so he did not break the rules. His actions could be said to be very secretive. But who would have thought that the problem would arise just like that? His chess piece, Gongda, had actually encountered a human martial arts cultivator, or in other words, a physical cultivator. What made him feel even more aggrieved was that the Gundam he created was no match for him. This was not to say that Gongda's body was not weaker than his opponents. Instead, it was the absolute difference in combat techniques. The Heavenly Mystic Immortal Lord felt rather anxious as he watched Gongda being continuously knocked down. It was because Gongda was placed in an important position. He was an important link in the human world, so he couldn't afford to lose him. However, Gongda's opponent was just a normal person, not a member of the underworld at all. He had no reason to descend to the mortal realm to help. But soon, he couldn't hold it in anymore, because Mu Zhiguang was obviously trying to kill him. Relying on his powerful martial arts techniques, he continuously attacked Gongda's head, neck, and other vital points. At this time, Gongda had already been beaten to the point of vomiting blood, but no one went up to help. Because the surroundings were filled with people, the prison guards did not notice anything wrong. Finally, Gongda could not take it anymore and fell heavily to the ground. At this time, the smiling Mu Zhiguang's eyes flashed with viciousness, and he smashed his fist towards Gongda's neck. Under the heavenly mystic immortal lord's disbelieving gaze, Gongda covered his throat and widened his eyes. After struggling for a while, he slowly lost his life. At this moment, the originally noisy cafeteria instantly fell silent. Everyone seemed very frightened, because Gongda, who originally had hopes of becoming a tyrant in the prison, was actually beaten to death. And he was beaten to death in a duel. At this moment, they looked at Mu Zhiguang with eyes full of fear. At the same time, they knew that Mu Zhiguang had gotten himself in a big trouble. Usually, it was fine to do whatever he wanted, but when someone died, it was like crossing a minefield, and the consequences were extremely serious. Just as the prisoners were shocked by this, a wisp of soul floated out of the already dead Gongda's body. At the same time, the power from the 6 paths of reincarnation appeared. At this moment, the heavenly mystic immortal lord finally could not sit still. He still had important uses for Yu Yao's soul. Although there was an accident now, he had to retrieve it and prepare for the next step. Therefore, he made his move. Far away in the heaven realm, he circulated all the divine power in his body and crossed realms to try to interfere with the direction of Yu Yao's soul. He was prepared to intercept Yu Yao's soul before the 6 paths of reincarnation took it away. Doing so would consume a huge amount of divine power, but the heavenly mystic immortal lord could no longer care about this. At this moment, he was betting on a short moment. As long as he was not discovered, it would not be a problem. Even if the great emperor of the underworld found out later, he could deny it without evidence. His divine power slowly gathered in the sky above the prison. But just as he was about to make his move, the power in the 6 paths of reincarnation suddenly strengthened and took Yu Yao's soul away. Seeing this, the heavenly mystic immortal lord's face turned extremely gloomy, and he immediately withdrew his power. After a short period of contemplation, his figure, who was in the heavenly policy mirror, slowly disappeared on the spot. This time, he decided to sneak into the 6 paths of reincarnation again. Just like before, he quietly took Yu Yao's soul away from the 6 paths of reincarnation. While crossing realms, the heavenly mystic immortal lord felt very upset. Before this, he had never miscalculated, but he did not expect that his important chess piece would be defeated by an ordinary martial arts cultivator in a mortal world. It was really embarrassing. Soon, through the torn space passage, his figure appeared in the 6 paths of reincarnation, shrouded in mist. Following the aura of the mark, he found Yu Yao's soul drifting forward. But just as he was about to take Yu Yao away like last time, a bell suddenly rang in the surroundings. Hearing the bell, the heavenly mystic immortal lord's expression changed, and he immediately wanted to tear the space to escape. But the space crack he tore was instantly restored to its original state after the bell rang. At this moment, the heavenly mystic immortal lord knew that he was in trouble. As he stared in horror, a figure with countless colorful rule strings floating around him appeared in front of him. Great Emperor of Dongyu, heavenly mystic, you've crossed the line. How did you find out that I'm here? It's just a coincidence. I was just checking out the 6 paths of reincarnation, and I didn't expect to see you here. I think I saw you trying to steal the soul. Hearing this, the heavenly mystic immortal lord's expression turned ugly, but he knew that he could not leave easily. Now that he had been caught, no one could save him except the immortal emperor. Seeing that the heavenly mystic immortal lord was silent, the great emperor of Dongyu waved his hand, and a brass bell suddenly fell, trapping the heavenly mystic immortal lord within it before flying back to his hand. At this moment, the great emperor of Dongyu could not help but laugh. Just now, he received a message from the 6 paths of reincarnation. The message was blank, without any indication. But the confused great emperor of Dongyu still decided to come to the 6 paths of reincarnation. Because the 6 paths of reincarnation was very important to the underworld, there was no room for error. As a result, he caught the heavenly mystic immortal lord who was about to take Yu Yao's soul. The heavenly mystic immortal lord could not give any reason to refute. This was because this was the 6 paths of reincarnation, not the territory of the heavenly realm. It was a forbidden area of the underworld, so it was not a place that could be entered and exited at will. Back when the heavenly realm thoroughly investigated the 6 paths of reincarnation, they used the heaven-defying alliance as an excuse to have the 3 immortal emperors personally negotiate with the 3 great emperors of the underworld to thoroughly investigate the 6 paths of reincarnation. But this time, there was no reason, no excuse, and they were sneaking in. This had violated the underworld's taboo. It was reasonable for the great emperor of Dongyu to make a move. As the great emperor of Dongyu waited, a golden statue slowly appeared in the 6 paths of reincarnation. The golden light forced the mist away, and the statue became vivid and lifelike, with the 10 prayer beads revolving around it. The newcomer was East Monarch Tai. Heavenly Mystic has violated the taboo. You did not do anything wrong, but he is my subordinate. Let him go. East Monarch Tai looked at the great emperor of Dongyu indifferently. Reason: this is a strand of your rule. I will return it to you now to offset Heavenly Mystic's mistake. As he spoke, a strand of rule ribbon floated out from the prayer beads on top of East Monarch Tai's head. This was the strand of rule ribbon that the great emperor of Dongyu had given out when he took the blame for Lu Wu. After receiving this strand of rule ribbon, the great emperor of Dongyu nodded and released the brass bell with a wave of his hand, and the figure of heavenly mystic deity emerged from the bell. East Monarch Tai nodded and reached out to grab the still confused heavenly mystic deity into the prayer beads. His figure suddenly disappeared from the 6 paths of reincarnation. Seeing this, the great emperor of Dongyu smiled. It seemed like he did not expect to retrieve the lost strand of rule ribbon in this way. He turned to look at the 6 paths of reincarnation fog and murmured softly, "Thank you." Then, his figure slowly disappeared into the 6 paths of reincarnation fog. Lu Wu and Lil Bailey, who saw this scene, turned around and high-fived each other. They could not help but smile. The ultimate goal of digging this trap was to make the heavenly realm passive, so that the great emperor of Dongyu could seize the initiative. Previously, Lu Wu could be said to have owed the great emperor of Dongyu. If it weren't for him, Lu Wu would have been caught red-handed by Dongwang Tai. As a result, the great monarch of the East Mountain lost one of the 3,000 strands of laws around him. It was a huge loss. However, Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li were already discussing how to punish the heavenly mystic deity lord when they realized that he was up to no good. Their ultimate goal wasn't just to remove the pawn that the heavenly mystic immortal monarch had placed in the human world, but to dig a trap for the heavenly mystic immortal monarch who was hiding behind the scenes to jump into it. As for what to do, Lu Wu and Lil Bailey had a discussion and finally decided on the plan. He first killed Gongda, and then had his soul enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. This was also the reason why the 6 paths of reincarnation suction had strengthened after Gongda's death, preventing the sky mystic immortal lord from intercepting him. As expected, the heavenly mystic deity lord took the bait and once again entered the 6 paths of reincarnation, intending to take away Yu Yao's soul using the same method as before. However, this time, Lil Bailey controlled the 6 paths of reincarnation in advance and sent a blank message to the great monarch of the East Mountain, attracting his attention. As expected, the great monarch of the East Mountain came after hearing the news and wanted to investigate the situation. Just like that, he coincidentally caught the heavenly mystic. This time, Dongwang Tai had no reason to ask the great monarch of the East Mountain to hand over Yu Yao, so he could only return the strand of law to make up for the heavenly mystic's mistake. Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li's plan was a perfect success. Meanwhile, in a certain prison, Mu Zhiguang, who had committed a huge crime, was locked in solitary confinement. He robbed a bank with a water gun, was caught smoking calmly, and killed someone after a few days in prison. The prison guards were really annoyed by his performance. What awaited Mu Zhiguang was a death sentence. Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li were very calm about this. The soul could be retrieved, and the only thing they had to give up was Black Tiger's body. They could get a new one another day. Perfect. Chapter 575. This time, although Tiantian deity Lord was lured into the trap and the great emperor of Dong, you successfully retrieved a strand of the law, Lu Wu also began to consider the development of the human world. After this incident, Lu Wu noticed that the heaven realm had noticed some changes, although they had yet to find out the reason. In fact, Lu Wu also understood that the heaven realm had never cared much about the development of the human world. Because the human world was already in the age of degeneration, there were only a few cultivators in the world, and they could not compete with the heaven realm at all. Therefore, the forces of the heaven realm were very confident about the human world. It could be said that, in their view, the human world had no future, and it was impossible for a powerhouse like the emperor to be born. And Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li took advantage of this. They lured humans into the underworld and used the underworld's forces to develop in the underworld, which was full of spiritual energy. However, in the eyes of the heaven realm, the human world was still the decadent human world. The humans were also mediocre, and there were no super cultivators. As for the development of human technology, the arrogant heavenly gods did not care about it all. To them, the human world that had given up on cultivation was useless. Even if they occasionally paid attention to the human world, they only paid attention to the cultivators, not the power of technology. They would not pay attention to the popularity of a game or the rise of virtual reality equipment. With all these factors combined, Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li's deception was not discovered at all, and there were no signs of them being discovered. However, Lu Wu also began to think of countermeasures for the Tiantian deity Lord, who had begun to pay attention to the human world and wanted to investigate the remnant god's negative body. Although the Tiantian deity Lord, who had suffered a great loss, should not think of placing a pawn in the human world in the short term, but it was uncertain in the future. If another pawn appeared, Lu Wu began to think about how he should deal with it. This time, Gangda's encounter with the martial arts cultivation powerhouse, Mu Zhiguang, could be considered coincidence. The death penalty after the incident also erased the traces of Mu Zhiguang's existence. But what if it was the next time? Another coincidence like this would arouse suspicion. Lil Bei Li came up with a plan for this. That was to detect the soul. As long as it was a spy from the heaven realm, Lil Bei Li could predict it in advance and then use the artifact to mark the soul of the pawn for precaution. Although this chess piece would definitely not be able to find the deity's negative body, totem, stored in the artifact dimension. However, while he was exploring the human world, he might come across the extremely popular battle game. Although it was unlikely that he would discover the problem, who knew if the heavenly mystic immortal lord would investigate further? Therefore, Lil Bei Li's plan was to mark the chess pieces and then create a different world of conquest for them. In other words, the other players were playing battle online. However, if the pawns that the heavenly mystic deity monarch planted in the human world started to fight, they would be playing a different game. Moreover, as a chess piece, it was impossible for him to actually play the game. All he did was investigate. It was very easy for him to fool the heavenly mystic immortal lord. However, this plan also needed to be perfected. For example, there were many battle game videos on the internet. If the game was different from the chess pieces, it could easily cause unnecessary trouble. Therefore, since they were going to fake it, they had to make it more realistic. Hence, after a discussion with Lil Bei Li, Lu Wu decided to create a virtual world for the Tiantian deity Lord's chess piece the next time. Let him toss and turn inside. After tricking the heavenly mystic deity Lord, Lu Wu met an old friend in the artifact. It was the soul of His Excellency Yu Yao. In Lu Wu's opinion, this guy's experience was quite pitiful. He was tricked by the players and broke up with his brothers. Although he temporarily became the king of Beiki and thought that he had reached the peak of his life, he died tragically in the hands of the players. However, even after his death, he could not rest in peace and was manipulated by the heavenly mystic deity Lord as a chess piece. The latter half of his life was a tragedy. However, this time, Lu Wu decided to recycle him and did not let him enter the 6 paths of reincarnation. Instead, after some modifications, he was sent to the non-server in the form of an NPC. He became an NPC that was loved by the non-server players and strengthened his equipment. After dealing with the complicated affairs, Lu Wu looked at the players again. Recently, the war between Beiki and the Corpse Clan was at a heated stage. While the Corpse Clan was fighting against Beiki, they also took the initiative to fight against the neighboring forces in the Land of Death. Although the Corpse Clan was under great pressure, compared to fighting against the Player Clan and other forces, the Corpse Clan at least had a huge advantage. The corpses of other forces could be plundered after they died in battle. Faced with the repeated attacks of the players, the Corpse Clan only wanted to create a corpse hill as soon as possible. Only then could they gain the upper hand. Because the Corpse Hill was not only used to cooperate in battles and defend against foreign enemies, it also had a key function, which was to help the unconscious Hitorigami recover from his injuries and wake him up in advance. Therefore, they took the risk and chose to fight on both sides. On the other hand, the players were simpler. They only wanted soul coins, and their thoughts were simple and unpretentious. Their daily routine was to move corpses, sell them, move corpses, and sell them again. With the development of various ways to use corpses, the market demand increased. As a result, the price of the corpses of the Corpse Clan warriors continued to rise. Moving corpses became a daily activity that earned a lot of soul coins. Although it was a little hard and easy to die, the return was high. Many rich players were willing to buy them, and the brick-moving players enjoyed it. In fact, the existence of tycoon players in the game was a good thing for all the brick-moving players, and it was not a bad thing that would destroy the balance of the game. From Lu Wu's point of view, perhaps some players' behavior of exchanging soul coins for cash was a huge loss. After all, soul coins were soul power, and they were extremely useful. How could they be compared to cash? However, from the player's point of view, although soul coins were very important and could enrich their gaming experience, there was a big regret, and that was the problem in reality. Because in reality, money was also needed. But where would the money come from? The commoner brick-moving players were unable to guarantee their expenses in real life. First of all, buying a gaming chamber was an expense, and the nutrition solution that could help the players stay online for 24 hours was a continuous expense. Other than that, there was also the need to take care of their families and so on. These were all things that required cash. If there was no source of income, how could they play the game better? The existence of a nouveau riche players was the perfect solution to this problem. They could spend money in real life to help these brick-moving players cope with their real-life expenses. Saying that the existence of tycoon players would make the game unfair was completely non-existent for Battle. Since Battle did not have the function of topping up money, the tycoon players had an advantage in certain aspects, and they had to pay equivalent benefits in real life in exchange. And the ones who benefited were, of course, these commoner brick-moving players. Therefore, when Lu Wu set up the soul coin exchange, he did not take cash as a processing fee. He was taking care of these brick-moving players so that they could solve their real-life needs and play the game better. As for the processing fee of soul coins, it was not to suppress the tycoon players, but because he needed soul coins too. Compared to cash, Lu Wu naturally cared more about soul coins. Moreover, the processing fee was not high, only 1%. For the players who bought soul coins, it was completely within the acceptable range. However, for Lu Wu, the huge transaction volume every day allowed him to earn a lot of soul coins. The existence of tycoon players was not only not harmful to Battle, but beneficial instead. Moreover, there were many other factors that affected the strength of the players other than soul coins. Luck was one of them, understanding of the game was another, and honing one's own combat skills was another. There were many such factors. Although the tycoon players had fancy equipment, they did not always have the upper hand. This was like many life professions. These professions could not be obtained just by having soul coins. Without diligently reading professional books and continuously learning and improving, it was impossible to obtain these life professions, no matter how many soul coins were spent. It could be said that Battle Royale was a game that was fair to all players. Hard work, talent, luck, and other aspects were all important factors that affected the development of the players, which made battle more like a second world. Therefore, these brick-moving players would sell some of their soul coins to the tycoon players on the soul coin exchange, in addition to improving their own strength and purchasing consumable items. They would not feel that they were being treated unfairly, but would be grateful instead. Similarly, the tycoon players were the same. They were also grateful to the commoner players. This was because without them, they would not have any shortcuts to obtain soul coins if the scummy officials did not open a top-up channel. Of course, it was one thing for the players to exchange needs and be grateful to each other, but the players had a unified attitude towards the scummy officials. Regardless of whether they were tycoon players or commoner players, all they had to say was that the scummy officials did not give out soul coins, did not open any activities, and were simply stingy. When it came to dissing the scummy officials, the players did their best. They would not be happy if they did not do so. In contrast, Lu Wu was very calm. No matter what they said, he was not going to listen to them. The players had no way to deal with Lu Wu. They could only choose to compromise and continue dissing him on the forum. At this time, Lu Wu was checking the situation of the players in the forum and in the game as usual. Apart from the game, the forum was a platform for the players to learn, show off, understand the hot topics in the game, and so on. It was a comprehensive platform that had great significance. For Lu Wu, the value of the battle forum was completely different. It was the place where the officials posted announcements. It was also one of the areas where the artifact detected abnormal situations, and it was also one of the channels for Lu Wu to check on major events. At this time, a post in the forum caught Lu Wu's attention. "Brothers, I bumped into the Sea King at the Void Ocean just now. I thought he was going to smash my ship, but he told me that he's here to negotiate. What do you guys think?" Post office poster content. Video attachment. In the video, the Sea King jumped onto the player's ship and told him that he wanted to negotiate with the player clan to plan something big. And this matter was related to the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. The specific matter was about a shipping plan. The Sea King wanted to do evil, but it was not appropriate for him to do it. After all, he was a member of the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, he turned his attention to the players. After all, compared to himself, it was normal for these gangsters to rob others. Even if the Underworld Chamber of Commerce came to investigate, they would not find anything. Instead, the forces in the nearby sea area would blur out. What? The player clan robbed others? Isn't that normal? For the nearby sea area forces who were used to the player clan robbing merchant ships, it would be strange if the player clan did not rob others. After all, in the eyes of these sea area forces, the player clan could only be described with one word: reckless. In their eyes, the player clan was not afraid of anything. Interest came first, happiness came second, and the importance of life was nothing. In the eyes of these sea area forces, there was only one reason why the player clan did not rob others. Maybe they were reckless and their clan was exterminated. Chapter 576. Baki, Lioli Coast. The news of the Sea King's arrival spread from the forum to the game. Suddenly, a large number of players gathered at Lioli Coast, wanting to see an old acquaintance that they hadn't seen for a long time. The Sea King, who was affectionately called the Leak King by the players, was very popular among the players. This was the third year in a row that he was the most popular villain. Although he wasn't the strongest among the villains, the Sea King's biggest advantage was his huge potential for growth. After spending 3 years with the players, the Sea King was the overlord of the Void Ocean, the Death Lord, and controlled the Death Legion. Then, he gathered the power of the 7 nations and established the Mu-Te-Si nation. Until now, the Sea King had grown to become the president of the War Chamber of Commerce, a symbol of power. It could be said that the players didn't stop, and the Sea King didn't either. The more setbacks he faced, the braver he became. His strength rose to a higher level after every transformation. After 3 years of fighting, the players had developed a bond with the Sea King. Although they would still fight him, it didn't affect his popularity among the players. A player in the forum even wrote a 300,000-word biography of the Sea King, the history of the struggle of the sea, which showed how popular he was. Now that the Sea King was here, a large number of players rushed to Lioli Coast. Even some newbie players followed the trend, wanting to see for themselves how the Sea King, who was known as the most popular villain by the veteran players, looked like. At this moment, a black full moon was speeding from the horizon above the sea, setting off huge waves along the way. It was shooting toward Lioli Coast at an extremely fast speed. The players weren't unfamiliar with this black full moon. It used to be Mu Zhiguang's weapon. After his death, it had been in the Sea King's possession. It could be said that the players could determine the person's identity just by looking at the full moon. Unlike before, the Sea King didn't bring his Mute Empire's navy with him this time. He was alone. As he approached the Lioli Coast, he hovered in the air and slowly landed on the coast. Looking at the crowd of players who were watching him like a monkey, the veins on the Sea King's forehead twitched. However, he held it in after some thought. He was here to seek cooperation, not to cause trouble. As an internal member of the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, the Sea King recently received an order from the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. He was asked to protect 5 merchant ships that were passing by the Kuelong Ocean and heading to the Scarlet Ocean. Initially, the Sea King wanted to do as he was told. However, when he was collecting information, he realized that the 5 merchant ships that were about to arrive at the Kuelong Ocean were transporting ice firestones. His thoughts changed instantly. The ice firestone was a kind of gemstone that only existed at the bottom of the devouring sea, and it would only be produced in a special environment where extreme cold and extreme heat intersected. This kind of gem had a powerful effect. It could combine conflicting attributes and balance them. Whether it was forging or alchemy, the addition of this gem would have a significant effect. Moreover, it would greatly reduce the probability of failure in forging and alchemy. It could even be used to forge weapons, equipment, or medicinal pills with conflicting attributes. For example, weapons and pills that coexisted with ice and fire attributes. The greatest effect of the ice firestone was spirit enhancement, which could be used to reforge the original equipment and improve its quality. However, because they weren't produced in large quantities, this type of gem was extremely rare and precious, reaching the range of a 6-tier treasure. Therefore, after understanding the situation, the Sea King suddenly had a new idea. Although he had joined the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce, his ambitions did not stop there. A year ago, he had an idea to replace the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce and become the overlord of the ocean. After a conversation with the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce's Elder Ing, the idea took root in the Sea King's mind. Since the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce could do it, why couldn't he? The power of the underworld was not eternal. Could he become a new king that overthrew the old force? For this reason, the Sea King had been planning on how to use the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce's power to strengthen himself step by step until he finally got rid of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce's control. Then, he could compete with the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce and even devour it. For the past 6 months, the Sea King had been well-behaved. Although he had many ideas, he didn't take any action. After all, the price of taking a wrong step was very serious, and there was no way to recover. However, this time, when he found out that the shipment of resources was ice firestone, the Sea King couldn't sit still. This was because the ice firestone would be of great help to the development of his force. For example, building high-tier Spectre warships, forging high-tier weapons, enchantment of existing high-tier equipment, and even refining medicinal pills that could improve his strength. As long as he got this batch of resources, the Sea King felt that he could save at least 100 years of hard work. For this reason, the Sea King decided to go all out and do something big. However, it was naturally not enough to rely on himself. After all, he was the protector in name, so he still needed help from an external force. Looking at Kuelong and the Void Ocean, the Sea King consulted many forces. He even thought of Langia Island and other original hostile forces. However, the Sea King gave up in the end, because these forces were obviously lacking in courage, not to mention their strength. The Sea King felt that they would most likely betray him first if he asked them to go against the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. After thinking about it, the Sea King still felt that the player clan was more reliable. It could even be said that this kind of dangerous mission should be done by the player clan. After all, they were famous for not being afraid of death for the sake of benefits. Not to mention robbing the merchant ships of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. The Sea King suspected that the player clan would even dare to rob the forces of the Protoss in the Central Ocean as long as there were benefits. Therefore, he came. As long as the player clan and the evil forces were willing to cooperate, he would definitely do it. However, at this moment, when he saw the players looking at him as if he was a monkey, the Sea King couldn't help but clench his fists, feeling insulted. He even vaguely heard one of the players saying, "Why are you squeezing? Civilized chives. Motherf asterisk her, what do you think I am? Also, what the hell is chives?" At this moment, Guyu, Lu Chai, and a dozen other guild leaders walked out of the crowd and stopped near the Sea King. "Sea King boss, what can I do for you?" Sun Chi extended his little paw and waved at the Sea King as if he was an acquaintance. Upon seeing this, the Sea King rolled his eyes. The Sea King was quite familiar with these few fellows. Whether it was when he established the country or when the Smoke Dragon Chamber of Commerce held a meeting, these few figures would always appear. He knew that they had a high status in the player clan. "I have a big deal to cooperate with you. It depends on whether you dare to do it or not," the Sea King immediately said. "Sea King boss, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't provoke us. We won't fall for it." Guyu heard and said with a smile. The Sea King nodded and did not hide anything. He told them the orders of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce and the results of his investigation. After the explanation, the Sea King spoke again. "I've told you everything that I know. Are you interested?" Guyu and the others fell silent and began to chat privately in the live chat channel. "Guyu, see, Leek is really awesome. He's thinking of growing up again. He's so motivated." Laughing emoji. Sun Chi. "Boss, this is a good thing. Let's agree to it. Although we don't know what this Ice Firestone is, it must be something good since C. Leek wants it so much." Lu Chai. "I agree too. However, the distribution of the profits is a problem. Let's make it clear to C. Leek first." Chun Ziyu. "I'm fine with it. You guys decide. I'll be your fighter." Lu Zhan. "I agree too. If there's a profit to be made, we must do it. It's not like we're losing anything." Laughing emoji. After a while, Guyu, who had made his decision, raised his head and smiled. "Sea King, it's definitely not a problem to do this. However, how are we going to distribute the profits?" The Sea King had already thought about this before he came. He said without hesitation, "You're right." He said without hesitation, "I'll provide the specific transportation route and other information. Therefore, it's 7-3. I'll get 70%, and you guys get 30%. Hearing the Sea King's distribution method, Guyu, Sun Chi, and the others could not help but look disgusted. "Look at this. Is this something a leek should say? Leeks take the majority of the profits, while we only get 30% after all the hard work we put in to nurture you. This is ridiculous. Sea Leek, Sea King, you're not being sincere at all. Why can't it be 70% for us and 30% for you?" Sun Chi could not help but stare at him. The Sea King could not help but stare at him. "Without my cooperation, you guys wouldn't even know when the transportation ship will arrive or what route it will take. I'm already being generous by giving you 30%. You can't do it without us. Apart from us, who else would dare to rob the Underworld Chamber of Commerce with you? Moreover, we're the ones who have to take the blame for this. When we fight, we'll also be the ones who put in the effort. Doesn't your conscience hurt when you ask for 70%? Sun Chi asked in disgust. "It won't hurt." The Sea King glared at Sun Chi and replied. Sun Chi was speechless. At this moment, Lu Chai could not help but say, "How about this? I'll come up with a plan. Everyone, please take a step back. We, the player clan, are not an unreasonable force, right?" The Sea King heard him and cursed in his heart. "The player clan is reasonable? You're still asking me? I'm your father." After thinking about it, the Sea King decided to listen to Lu Chai's proposal first. "Say it. I know that everyone is thinking about their own interests, so fairness is very important. After careful consideration, I feel that it's more appropriate for the player clan to take 60% and you take 40%. It's fair and reasonable. Fair my A***s. Reasonable, my A*S. Looking at Lu Chai's serious face, the Sea King really wanted to use the Death's Light wheel in his hand to test how thick his skin was. How could he say such shameless words in such a serious manner? How is this a step back? It's practically a swap with the plan that I suggested. The Sea King immediately shook his head. There's no room for discussion. At most, we'll take a step back. I'll take 60%, and you guys take 40%. That's too much. I object to your decision. Is there anyone else who has the same idea as me? Sun Chi raised his little paw as he spoke. Gu Yu and the others were stunned. After some thought, they also raised their hands. The crowd of players behind also raised their hands when they saw this. After a while, all the players on the coast raised their hands. The Sea King was dumbfounded. Sea King boss, this is a democratic vote. Everyone thinks that your proposal is immoral. The eyes of the crowd are clear. Now, you're the only one who agrees. Everyone else is against it. Sun Chi said seriously. At this moment, the Sea King really wanted to start a massacre. I'm F*** negotiating with you, but you're playing a game of voting with me. I look so easy to bully. If you guys agree, then agree. If not, I'll find another force. The Sea King said with a pale face. Go ahead. Can you still find another force to cooperate with? At most, no one will be able to earn anything. Go Zi said, unwilling to admit defeat. In order to get more benefits for their side, the Sea King, Sun Chi, and the others began to argue endlessly. Until the sky turned dark, neither side could convince the other. Therefore, they continued to argue through the night. Chapter 577. Beiki, Liuli Coast. The sky gradually darkened, and the players who came to visit the Sea King gradually dispersed. However, the negotiation on the distribution of benefits was not over yet. At this moment, the Sea King, Gu Yu, and the others were sitting on the beach in a circle around the bonfire. Their faces were extremely solemn. The meat is almost done, the dog said as he looked at the ingredients on the grill with a solemn face. Seeing that no one responded, the dog continued. Why don't we talk after eating? I'm a little hungry. I'm too embarrassed to cook if you guys don't eat. The Sea King, Gu Yu, and the others looked at each other, but still nodded. Thus, everyone started eating. During this time, Gu Yu and the others shared Beiki's specialty with spirit wine with the Sea King. The Sea King also took out Mu Ti's specialty sea spirit wine. The atmosphere instantly became very harmonious. However, a new round of negotiation began after the meal. The atmosphere instantly returned to its original tense state. Both sides argued with each other and gave their own reasons. The Sea King's reason was that he was the mastermind and initiator of this plunder. It was absolutely impossible for him to only take 40% of the spoils. Moreover, he had taken a huge risk in this plan, so he had to take 60%. There was no room for negotiation. On the players' side, Gu Yu and the others had many excuses. They used all kinds of excuses at this moment. For example, after this plundering, many of our clansmen will definitely die, and we will definitely have to pay for the settlement. Another example is that we have a large number of players, so we won't get much after the distribution. So we have to take more. The Sea King was dumbfounded as he listened to all the excuses that came out of his mouth. When the discussion reached a critical point, the dog immediately brought out the proposal of voting. It was fair and just very democratic. Of course, the Sea King was not stupid enough to agree. If they really had a vote, the Sea King felt that he would have to get the Mute army to vote. At this moment, he was alone and there were more than 10 people in front of him. What the F***CK? Judging from the shamelessness of the player clan, they could get 90% and he could even get 10%. In short, both sides could not reach an agreement on the distribution of benefits, no matter how they discussed. Neither side was willing to give in. In the end, it became a situation where they could only stare at each other helplessly. At this moment, Yishui said with a serious expression, Sea King, I know you want to improve your strength as soon as possible. I also know that you're very motivated, but you have to be reasonable. We're all familiar with each other, and this can't go on. How about this? You give up one floor, and the player clan will owe you a favor. The Sea King rolled his eyes and refused without hesitation. No, you can give me 10%. I'll owe you a favor. What? Is a favor from our player clan worthless? Sun Chi couldn't help but slap the ground with his paw as he glared at the Sea King. You're just a white phantom. Why you keep claiming to be from the player clan? Have you forgotten what race you're from after getting so close to the player clan? The Sea King said as he looked at Sun Chi disdainfully. When Go Zi heard this, he felt like he was struck by lightning. This had always been a pain in his heart. Now that the wound had been poked, he couldn't help but bare his teeth and reveal his ferocious face. However, when faced with the Sea King, he resisted the urge to charge forward and kill him. After all, he was no match for him. The Sea King could not help but laugh as he looked at the angry and sullen Sun Chi. Forget it. There's no point in continuing this discussion. Let's all take a step back and split the loot 50-50. How about that? In the face of the 50-50 proposal, Gu Yu and the others still looked like they were at a disadvantage. After a moment of silence, they finally nodded in agreement. The Sea King had a new understanding of the player clan's greed. He felt that if he didn't propose a 50-50 split, these fellows would continue to fight with him and fight for their lifespans. That's settled then. I'll go back and continue to collect information. When the time comes, I'll send someone to inform you of the specific itinerary of the merchant ship. As he spoke, the Sea King stood up and summoned the Death's Light Wheel. He leaped up and shot into the sky with the light wheel. The negotiation had officially ended. Apart from Sun Chi, Gu Yu and the others were all smiling. Although they kept saying during the negotiation with the Sea King that the player clan would lose many of their clansmen in this battle and that they would suffer heavy losses, in reality, there were no losses at all. To them, this round of plundering was a business without any cost. It was the kind where they would definitely make a profit. Now that they had obtained 50% of the loot, everyone was actually very satisfied. However, after talking for a whole night, everyone was a little tired. After saying goodbye to each other, they went their separate ways. After everyone left, Guyu turned his head and looked at the dog who was lying in front of the bonfire, biting his claws with an autistic look on his face. He said, "Sun Chi, let's go." The dog did not say a word and looked aggrieved. "Don't be sad. Have you forgotten that this game is full of opportunities? Who knows when you'll encounter an opportunity to transform into a human?" After spending so much time together, Guyu could tell what was on the dog's mind at a glance and immediately comforted him. "Boss, it's been 3 years. Have you lost your way with this opportunity?" The dog raised his head with an autistic look on his face. Hearing this, Guyu felt extremely ashamed. Just as he was about to open his mouth to persuade him again, a server announcement suddenly rang in his mind. Server announcement. The Mansion of the Dead has a new NPC. Mu Guang. Mu Guang, Spiritual Augmentation Master. NPC details, Mu Guang, who is proficient in the ability of spiritual augmentation. He is adept at enhancing weapons and equipment. NPC functions. Players can enhance their weapons and equipment at Mu Guang's place. They can enhance their weapons and equipment by stacking them. Need to prepare the materials and pay the handling fee. Enhancement hint. Equipment below level 150 does not provide enhancement function. Equipment above level 150 has an upper limit of enhancement based on the quality of the equipment. White equipment enhancement is not available. From low to high, they are blue, red, purple, epic, legendary, 1 to 10, unreleased. Weapon and equipment enhancement list. Level 150 blue weapon and equipment. Highest enhancement is +2. For every increase in quality, the upper limit increases by 1. Level 200 blue weapon and equipment. Highest enhancement is +3. For every increase in quality, the upper limit increases by 1. Level 250 blue weapon and equipment. Highest enhancement is +4. For every increase in quality, the upper limit increases by 1. Level 300 enhancement basic blue equipment. Success rate and effect list. Enhancement +1, 100%. Need to provide 1 ice firestone for each enhancement, 50 soul coins handling fee. Enhancement 2 to 4, 80%. Need to provide 3 ice firestones for each enhancement, 100 soul coins handling fee. Enhancement 5 to 8, 60%. Need to provide 5 ice fire stones for each enhancement. 200 soul coins handling fee. Enhancement 9-12, 50%. Need to provide 10 ice fire stones for each enhancement. 400 soul coins handling fee. Enhancement 12-18, 20%. Need to provide 25 ice fire stones for each enhancement. 800 soul coins handling fee. Enhancement 18 to 25, 8%. Need to provide 100 ice fire stones for each enhancement. 2,000 soul coins handling fee. Enhancement plus 25 and above will be activated after the Ghost King trial is released. Enhancement effect. Enhancement is affected by the quality of the weapon. The higher the quality, the higher the enhancement rate at each stage, and the higher the number of enhancements that can be carried. The influence of the weapon's level is small. Enhancement hint. After reaching the upper limit of enhancement can be carried out, but there's a chance that the weapon will not be able to bear the power of spiritual attachment and will be destroyed. Enhancement hint 2. When you level up and need a new weapon, you can decompose the weapon in your hand to recycle the enhancement material and destroy the weapon. Decompose recovery rate. 1% to 100%, depending on the ability of the decomposer. Decomposer will be released in the near future. Official hint. Enhancement is risky. Please proceed with caution. While the players were in an uproar, Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes, smiled. Gu Yu and the others had been negotiating with the Sea King the whole night, and he had been watching from the sidelines. For this reason, Lu Wu specifically asked Lil Bei Li what this ice fire stone was and why the Sea King wanted it so badly. From Lil Bei Li's description, Lu Wu found out that this was a special treasure used for spiritual attachment, enchantment, and it was extremely rare. After understanding its use, Lu Wu started to think about how the players should use this batch of ice fire stones if they obtained it. At this time, Lil Bei Li suggested to open up the enhancement function for weapons and equipment. This was because the greatest effect of a treasure like the ice fire stone was not for alchemy or forging, but for spiritual attachment, which could strengthen and transform weapons for the second time. After that, Lu Wu decisively introduced a new NPC, Muguang. Otherwise, he was afraid that the players who did not know the importance of the ice fire stone would waste it after obtaining it. And this enhancement NPC, Muguang, was made from the soul of Mu Zhiguang, who had returned. Bailey had inputted a lot of enhancement and enhancement knowledge into his mind, and it was very reliable. This time, he was put into the Mansion of the Dead to carry the heavy responsibility of allowing the players to use the ice fire stone reasonably. However, the enhancement function that Lu Wu opened up was not as cheat-like as other games. This was because it was not easy for the players to have a good weapon or equipment. Usually, the players could carry bricks day and night for a good piece of equipment, and Lu Wu had seen it all. Therefore, for the enhancement function in battle, Lu Wu set the enhancement limit for the corresponding weapon. As long as the limit was not reached, even if the players failed to enhance, the weapon would not shatter. At most, it would remain unchanged. Of course, if there were some stubborn players who wanted to enhance after reaching the limit, Lu Wu would not stop them. However, if they failed, the weapon and equipment would definitely not be used. Stubbornness would definitely pay the price. Of course, Lu Wu would not do anything wasteful. For these damaged weapons, Lu Wu would choose to recycle them at 5% of their original price and return them to the players who failed the enhancement in the form of soul coins as a form of consolation. As for the recovered equipment, since he had the artifact in his hands, Lu Wu could completely decompose them into soul coins. After deducting the 5% compensation from the players, he would earn 95% of the soul coins. Most importantly, the weapons that the players spend a lot of money on could also be decomposed and processed. The recovered materials could be recycled and used on new weapons. It could be said that no matter how much the players spent, the total amount of soul coins would not decrease. At most, it would flow to Lu Wu. As long as the players were not stubborn, they would not lose much soul coins. This time, before the players could plunder the ice and fire rocks, Lu Wu had already made preparations. At the same time, he was looking forward to the players returning with a big profit. Unlike Lu Wu, Guyu and the others were instantly dumbfounded when they learned about the new NPC, Guang's function. The weapons and equipment on them were purple, epic, quality, and above. They were top-notch equipment with an extremely high enhancement limit. The enhancement function of the weapons and equipment provided by the new NPC could greatly enhance their strength in a short period of time. Naturally, they were happy about it. However, the problem was that the soul attachment required ice and fire rocks as the raw material. Moreover, they had a total of 16 pieces of equipment on them. The amount of ice and fire rocks needed to enhance them in turn was extremely huge. At this moment, they suddenly wanted to call the Sea King back and sit by the sea to discuss the distribution problem.